what's up? Hey, uh, right. I'm back at college right now, and it's really weird when I have this position right here. And today, I'm reading chapter 6 of this fanfiction called The Marks We Make. And I probably have to do this one very quickly because, I got a life to get through. Where we left off right now is that Keith, oh, tries to get away from this soulmate talk, I should say. He got a little nervous of what is his soulmate thinking, what was happening, and he just ran away and he has no idea. He doesn't quite ready to face this person that he was looking for. No, it's because of the soulmate. So they don't find each other's soulmate because, I mean, I told you that many times because they're each other's soulmate. We'll see how he's going to give all this little secret out. Just give out everything that he got from this point on. Yeah, spill all the secrets and just pour the rest of it out. Okay, let's get started with chapter 6. And yeah, chapter 6. Oh, heads up. According to this site, and it says there's drinking and alcohol in that chapter. So, yeah. Chapter 6. Leave us wanting more. It's a bit like watching the Titanic sink, if he's being honest. Fascinating and terrible all at once. Shiro has always been far better at this whole soulmate thing than Keith. Always been confident in it. Never had a doubt or worry. For a moment, his first connection came through. He's been a lovesick fool. Things have calmed somewhat as he grown older, grown patient, grown quieter, steadier. Circumstances shaped him. He's no less caring, but he pulled it into private instead of wearing it on his sleeve. He went through life knowing one day he would meet the woman of his dreams, and he would be happy. He wishes he had grown up with that kind of certainty, that kind of conviction. Sometimes he envied Shiro for it, but other times, like now, he's glad that he's different. Because he's always known that Shiro would be gross after meeting his soulmate, but he hadn't really grasped the reality of it until it's staring him in the face. He watches from across the room, perched cross-legged on the couch with a textbook open in his lap, as Shiro leans over the counter of the cozy little coffee shop, weight on his elbows. Allura sits behind the register, mirroring his posture, putting them face to face. He can't hear what they're saying, and is pretty damn grateful for it. Every once in a while, however, they giggle, and he sure as hell can hear that. Both of them giggle. Giggle. Shiro giggles. He doesn't think he's heard his brother giggle since he had his wisdom teeth removed and was still delirious from the anesthesia. And even then, his giggles had been muffled by the wads of cotton in his mouth. While they talk, heads bowed close together. Allura idly plays with the fingers of his hand, tracing the knuckles, running her fingertips over his palm. It's close and intimate. But the big and goofy smile on Shiro's face is enough to turn the situation almost comical. Almost. As he watches, Shiro leans back, lifting his coffee cup to his lips, but as he goes to drink, Allura says something and Shiro laughs, causing the coffee to dribble down his chin and onto his shirt. He slaps his hand to his face, but the damage is already done. He lights up like a beacon that he can see from across the room, eyes wide in horror. Sure, now he's embarrassed, but Allura only laughs, eyes twinkling as she reaches for napkins and stands, leaning over the counter to help him clean up the mess. He can feel his lip curling and his eye twitching. He wants to look away. He really does. But what else is there to look at? An empty parking lot through the window, the walls, His art history notes, Lance? Yeah, he rather keeps staring at his train wreck of a brother. Shiro catches Laura's hand and just holds it. They're smiling and staring, but neither of them is saying anything. It's soft and sweet and actually kind of creepy. He really hopes he never gets like that when a coffee cup comes down on the table in front of him with probably more force than necessary. It does the trick, however, snapping him out of his thoughts. When his eyes shot down to the table, staring at the coffee cup. It's branded with the simple line design of their establishment, and his name is scribbled across it in permanent marker, accented by a winking face. When he looks up, Lance is standing next to the couch, staring down at him with a smug smile and mischief in his eyes, arms crossed loosely and head cocked out to the side. There is a smattering of flour on his apron and a small smear of syrup on his cheek. He has the ridiculous urge to wipe it off. He looks back at the coffee cup before that thought goes too far. Brows pinching. I didn't order anything? He glances back up in time to see Lance rolls in his eyes. Yeah, I know. It's on the house. Something odd bubbles in Keith's chest, and he quickly stamps it out. Instead, he raises a brow, small frown pursing his lips. Did Laura agree to this? She has a friends and family discount. But from his experience, she very rarely gives drinks out for free. You can't blame her for that. Their business is thriving, but small. Lance grin widens. She didn't even notice, he says, a laugh in his voice as he steps over and plops down onto the couch next to him. It jostles Keith, and he puts a hand down to his book to keep it from falling out of this lap. He's far too aware of the fact that his knee brushes against Lance's thigh, but Lance doesn't seem to notice at all. Besides, she owes you after subjecting you to... She gestures to Shiro Laura across the room. This, glancing back toward the other standing, he bites back a grimace as Shiro gestures with his prosthetic while leaning against the counter with his lip, elegantly knocking over several things in the process and scrambling to righten them. Yeah, can't really argue with Lance's logic. He reaches for the coffee cup, cradling it in his hands, and enjoying the warmth as it seeps through his gloves. This entire time, he can feel Lance's eyes on him. It's uncomfortable, and he's about 2 seconds away from snapping at him when he gets a whiff of his drink, and then he understands why he's staring. Keith slides his gaze to Lance slowly, taking in Lance's attempt at nonchalance, and it faults in it. The playful gleam in his eyes, the slight tilt of his lips, the bounce in his leg, the taps of his fingers on biceps where his arms cross over his chest. Keith's eyes narrow. What is this? He shrugs, and the attempt at casual is lost as he smiles. Keith, it's coffee. This isn't coffee. Keith, it smells like caramel. Just drink it. I'm lactose. Oh my god. I know. There's no milk in it. Keith just continues to glare and lands over his eyes. Or whipped cream. Jesus. Give a guy a little credit, will you? He just stares at him, lips pursing, before turning his eyes back to the cup. He holds it a little further away from him, head pulled back slightly. He can smell the caramel clear as day, and while he's not opposed to caramel in and of itself, he's not really sure he trusts it in a drink, let alone drink made by Lance, who is notorious for his disgustingly sweet creations. It's not poisoned, he says with a sigh, edge and amusement fraying slightly. I don't like sweet coffee, he mumbles to the cup in his hands. He knows that he's going to try it eventually. He knows he is, because Lance made it, and Lance wants him to try it. And when Lance's playful poking and prodding starts to fade, his disappointment and worry, well, his resolve crumbles. I know you don't. Just trust me, and try it. He just hubs, feeling the pout starting to form on his face, and refusing to look at Lance because of it. Dude, it's free coffee. Well, he has a point. Keith finally brings the cup to his lips, taking a sip, and recalls quickly, lip curled. He hears a choked laugh, and turns to glare at Lance. He has a hand pressed to his mouth, eyes crinkled and knitting. Dude, why do you burn yourself every time? Keith rolls his eyes, rubbing his thumb against the roof of his mouth. It doesn't happen every time. Lance exhales a short laugh. Often enough, try it again, but slower. Actually, try to taste it this time. Shooting him another quick glare, he tries again, taking a moment to blow through the tiny opening in his cup. He's not sure if it does anything, but it makes him feel better. He sips tentatively, and he's pleasantly surprised. He blinks, staring at the cup for a second like it might be a trick, then goes for another sip. Well? Lance asks, expectant and eager. Keith hates it to admit it, but it's not that bad. Really? His smile is far too bright. Keith can hear it in his voice. His eyes turn away, shrugging slightly. What is it? Caramel Americano. He says it with pride, like there's actually an accomplishment in finding something other than drip coffee that Keith likes, and not some ridiculous self-proclaimed challenge that he started a couple weeks ago. Keith lets him have his victory, silently sipping his free drink. They both win this round. Alora's loud laugh draws both of their attention, followed almost immediately by a sudden snort. Her laughter trails off instantly, muffled by her hand as she stares at Shiro with wide, panicked eyes. Shiro, on the other hand, is just smiling like he's won the lottery. How long do you think until that wears off? He asked, aiming for a casual landing firmly in Grumpy territory. It's not that he's not happy for Shiro. He is. Both he and Laura have been through a lot more than their 20-some years warrant, and they both deserve some unbridled happiness. But watching them is bittersweet. He's happy for his brother, he's happy for his new friend, he's happy that some soulmates actually do seem genuinely happy together, but it leaves a bitter taste in his mouth, leaves a small, dark knot twisted up in his gut. He's never wanted what they have, but Shiro makes him wish that he did. Lance, on the other hand, doesn't seem to have the same dilemma. He just watches them, lounging into the couch, a small smile playing across his lips, like he's not fully aware that it's there. Hmm? He hums, turning to Keith with one eyebrow raised. What wears off? You know, Keith frowns, waving a hand vaguely at the two across the room. That. It's not a clear explanation, but Lance seems to get what he means anyway. He tilts his head to the side, gaze thoughtful. I think it's kinda cute. It's painful to watch, he says flatly. Lance laughs at that. Light and airy. Honestly, the longer it goes on, the more blackmail I have. He grunts, displeased but understanding. She's definitely not going to hear the end of this anytime soon. But if they're anything like my parents, it'll never stop. Not really. Keith feels himself tense, eyes trickling into his veins as his stomach coils itself into a tight knot. Lance's voice is soft and fond when he speaks of his parents. It's an affection that runs deep, an adoration that goes down to his core, light and airy, dreamy and distant. He glances sideways at him, breath catching in his throat at the soft expression he finds there, at the faraway look in his eyes. The sweet taste of caramel sours on his tongue, the heat from the cup burning through the leather of his gloves. It was such an offhanded statement, something that was nearly made more for himself than for Keith, and Keith knows he can just ignore it. There was nothing fishing in Lance's tone, nothing to indicate that Keith should inquire further, nothing to say he's supposed to ask, but he feels like he should. Feels it like a knot of lead in his stomach, tastes it in the bile that threatens to rise up his throat. He should ask. He knows he should. Conventions deem it so. And even though Lance leaves the comment loose enough that Keith can easily let it go, ignore it with no harm, no foul. He's kind of wants to ask, and that's what makes it worse. That's what really twists him up. He wants to know. Curiosity is a powerful thing. And not even the dread that rises, threatening to choke him, can keep it at bay. This is his soulmate, his soulmate's parents, and while he's been avoiding thinking of them together at all, he knows that somewhere in the future he'll probably meet Lance's family. They might be his family. Oh god, that's a terrifying thought. He clears his throat, holding his coffee cup on top of the book in his lap. He stares at the words, but they all blur together. Art history is dull anyway, and he's not absorbing any of it when his heartbeat is in overtime and his nerves are standing on end. What are they like? He asks, quiet and hesitant. Hmm? Lance hums, turns to look at him, eyebrow raised. He looks like the picture of ease, arms crossed loosely, legs crossed, foot bound to Italy, lounging back against the couch. Keith's mouth feels dry. He glances sideways for only a moment before it becomes too much and returns his eyes to the book in his lap. His hair falls, blocking Lance from the view, and doesn't move to fix it. Your parents, he tries again, voice stronger this time. What they're like? They're... Lance pauses, and the silence feels soft and thoughtful. When he continues, his voice is incredibly fond, that unbridled admiration clear as day. They're in love, he says it so simply, so matter-of-factly, like he would say the sky is blue and water is wet. It's not a question or never has been. Even before their first connection, they were best friends. Back when Mom still lived in Cuba, he pauses, chuckling to himself. They even did the same thing those two did. Well, sorta. What do you mean? Keith risked a glance sideways, catching a small smile as he cocks his head to the side, still watching Shira and Laura. Lance lets one shoulder rise and fall in a small shrug. They had a word. They were best friends as kids, and when Mom moved away, they promised each other that they'd write a word on their hand after they had their first connections, just to see if it was each other. You know, small ones, chuckle low and soft. It makes Keith's heartbeat erratic. It was a 1 in a million chance, really, but it worked out. They're soulmates, and they love each other, and they've never stopped showing it. Keith can deal with the fondness in his voice, with the soft adoration for his family. What makes his chest tight and his stomach nauseous with guilt is the clear note of longing that rings out beneath it all. The clear want of that, of what his parents have, or what Cheryl and Laura have, what Keith isn't sure he's capable of giving him, what is so completely opposite of what his own parents were like. Oh, he says, soft and uncertain, simply because he feels like he has to feel the sounds. That sounds nice. And it does. Nice, if not unrealistic. Nice in the way that fairy tales and happily ever afters are nice. Nice in the way that storybooks depict soulmates. Nice in the way that romance novels and movies are nice. But just because everyone is guaranteed a soulmate doesn't mean that their stories are guaranteed to be nice. Nice is 1 in a million. Yeah, Lance says, a small sigh in his voice. The longing there, the resignation, the hope. It's like 1,000 pinprick stabs to his heart, makes his bones heavy and leaden with guilt. It is. They're quiet. He's run out of things to say, and he's afraid of what his voice might sound like if he tries. Across the room, he can still hear Laura Shira's hushed voices, but his eyes are on the book in his lap. Lance is quiet at his side, thankfully letting the subject go. He doesn't push it, and he doesn't keep talking, for which Keith is glad, but instead they're left in this silence that stretches, every second adding a brick to the wall between them. He's read the same paragraph about 15 times before Lance finally speaks. What are you working on anyway? He sighs, letting his relief at the subject change come out in a rush. Art history. Oh, really? He leans over, getting to Keith's personal space to look at the book in his lap. Keith ignores the brush of their shoulders, of Lance's thigh pressing into his knee. You any good at it? He turns his head then, glaring at Lance with his lips pursed. He just blinks back, meeting his eyes, unperturbed by their proximity. Then finally he leans back, eyebrow cocked. What? I'm an art major. Yeah, so does it mean you're good at the history side of things? He has a fair point. But that doesn't mean Keith is willing to give it to him. He just stares, lips bursting into a deeper frown. Lance puts his hands up in defensive gesture. Hey, I was just asking. I'm actually in an art history class right now, and it's killing me. Keith's expression relaxed expression, eyebrow raising. Were you in an art history class? He shrugs, arms going back across his chest. Needed some humanities courses for Gen Ed. Thought it would be easy, but I was wrong. Clearly, Keith says flatly, amusement playing with edges of his tone, easing away his frown. Lance glares at him, letting it go with a small huff. Anyway, I was just going to ask if you're good at it. Maybe you could help me sometime. Like, tutor you? Lance shrugs, eyes across the room. Tutor me. Help me study. Kick my ass when I inevitably give up. Whatever works. His voice is light and hopeful. Playful but serious. Keith finds the corners of his lips, tilting into the ghost smile. You're giving me permission to kick your ass? He shrugs again, eyes sliding to Keith's smirk playing at his lips. You do what you gotta for the grades, man. I suppose I can help. Really? Yeah. Cool. His smile is so genuine that it eases the tension in Keith's chest, and he looks away, lifting the coffee cup to his lips to hide his own smile. And talks about the class that Keith's taking, the art history class. Same thing as Lance, and tutor. Lance wants Keith to tutor him and help out all this, grades or whatever. I mean, it's called teamwork, right? I mean, you gotta be cooperate each other. You know, two is better than one. And then once he had that thought about Sharon and Laura are talking to each other while they're at the coffee shop, and it really sounds weird, but it's still cute. I mean, they deserve to be a power couple. Sharon and Laura are meant to be together for Keith, but it's still good for him. But at the same time, it's kind of have a bitter taste for it. We'll see how that happens. But I'm glad that Keith and Lance were in this together. They're in it together. Keith's apartment is small and simple. Just one room, a bathroom, and a kitchen nook off to the side. His bed occupies one corner, just a double wide mattress on the ground without a frame. A couch occupies the center of the room, old and faded and found for cheap at their local thrift store. It faces the wall, where Keith's decent-sized TV sits upon a stand. It isn't something he thinks he needs, and it isn't something that he necessarily wanted, but it was Shiro's old TV, and his brother had practically pushed it on him. The rest of the space has other bits of furniture, hand-me-downs, and things found at thrift stores. Dressers, a desk, a few shelves, a nightstand, plastic drawers for his art supplies. Together, they essentially cover all the walls, blocking in his space effectively, leaving no open spaces that would make his apartment feel empty. His walls, however, are effectively bare. Shiro says it's odd for an artist, but Keats never really thought about it. All his art is in his sketchbooks. He doesn't need to put it on his walls. Besides, something about putting his own work on display in his own home feels odd, egotistical, weird. His room back home at his grandparents' place is covered in posters he's collected throughout the years, but he didn't really feel the need to bring any of them with him. The only thing hanging on his walls is a large canvas depicting a painted scene of rugged desert mountains, orange, reds, and browns, a sunset to cast the lightning in purples and pinks, landscape dotted with green shrubs and scattered trees, flowers of the color of lilac and blue. Keith's apartment is small and simple, nearly cluttered and obviously lived in, but he's never considered it cozy. Not until he has three friends scattered around his space. Hinge, look, Lance says, waving the Rubik's Cube around in front of them, between their face and their laptop screen. Paige blinks, pulling their head back a bit to focus on what's being presented to him. What am I looking at? Lance scoops, rolling his eyes as he points to one of the cube's sides. Look, I did it! I got a whole side the same color, he says, beaming with pride. Paige is sitting cross-legged on the couch, and Lance sits so he's leaning up against their side, legs propped up on the arm of the couch. Keith expected them to push him away, but it's been nearly an hour, and he's still using them like a prop. They reach up, adjusting their glasses as they finally seem to focus on the cube. Did you get all the centers lined up? All the corners in the right places? Yup, check it out. They take the cube from him, turn it around and nodding. Good job, Lance. That didn't take as long as I expected. He's beaming, practically pointing at Lance. Yeah, little fit Pidge. What the he screeches, sitting up straight and gaping in horror as Pidge quickly and easily mixes up the cube, erasing all his hard work. Pidge smirk, holding it up, eyes already back on the screen. Did it again. Why would you do that? He whines, taking the cube back, shoulders slumping as he frowns at him. They shrug. You learn by doing it again and again. If you do it once and put it away, you don't learn anything. I'm helping you. You're evil as what you are, he mutters, slouching back against their side and fiddling with the cube once more. Keith snorts from across the room, and Lance glanced up to catch his eye. What's so funny over there, Keith? He says, frowned deeply. Nothing, he says simply, giving a small shrug before slouching a little further against the wall, propping his sketchbook up a little higher on his bent knees to hide his small smirk. He's probably just enjoying your pain, Pidge says, matter-of-factly. I did the same thing to him when he learned. You were merciless, Keith says flatly. Pidge's smirk is small, eyes glinting as they glance over the top of their laptop to where Keith is lounging on his bed. You learned, didn't you? Evil, Lance says in a loud hiss, and Keith's smirk widens. They lapse back into the comfortable silence, his small apartment, filled with the sound of the cube turning and both. Pidge is Hunk typing. Pidge is more intermittent, while Hunk is a near constant, pauses occasionally, eyes lifting from the screen of his laptop to stare blankly at the wall, before going back to it. He had said he needed to finish an essay before their Quidditch tournament this weekend, and from the sound of it, he's doing it faster than Keith has ever been able to write a paper. Either he knows what he's talking about, or it's just spewing out bullshit. Okay, Pidge says, drawing all their attention. They sit up together, crackling their knuckles as they stare at their screen. We have 17 people going to the tournament. Hunk nods, scratching his chin. Not bad. Gives everyone plenty of subs. That means I can snatch out of games, right? Lance asks, bright and hopeful, twisting around and swinging his feet to the floor to sit up. Pidge fixes him with a firm look, pointing a threatening finger at his nose. He goes cross-eyed, trying to look at it. Yes, but I want you back whenever we play. His smile falls into a little pout, brows pinching. I'm not going to abandon the team, Pidge. Not on purpose, you won't. But you really caught up with the snitching thing and lose track of time. No snitching for games that might overlap our playtime. He huffs, sinking a little lower on the couch and going back to fiddling with the cue. Fine. It's for the best, buddy, Hunk says from where he's sitting on the floor. Back to the couch. He reaches over to Pidge to pat Lance in the back. We need you, dude. You're like our best long shot. I know. Snitching is the best part. I thought winning was the best part. Keith says, glancing up to see Lance stop his mouth. You have a point. Anyway, Pidge says, pushing their glasses higher up their nose as they check their phone. We have 17 people, including the 4 of us. Hunk has a car that'll fit 5. Sharon and Laura offered to drive, so that's 9 more spots. And Karan said we can call him in for another car if we need it. Which we do. Since most of our players going don't have cars on campus or don't want to drive, not that I can blame them. So, that's plenty of spots for everyone. They finish tapping out a message before putting their phone away, turn back to their computer. So, it's a 4.5 hour drive. We'll meet up tomorrow around 7 when everyone's out of class has time to pack. Drive to my parents' house, sleep there, go to the tournament at 10 in the morning. It ends around 5 or 6. We have dinner, stay the night at my place again, and drive back Sunday. Am I missing anything? Hunk shrugs, turning back to his laptop, fingers moving as soon as they settle over the keys. Nope, sounds about right to me. Pitch nods, looking over whatever's on the screen. Cool, great. I'm still waiting to hear back from them about whether or not they want us to bring our own hoops. What about uniforms? The shirts should be ready for pickup tomorrow morning. I could go after my morning classes. Awesome. The conversation falls more into the administrative side of things, and Keith starts to tune them out. Exciting as it is to listen in on who has and who hasn't paid for their Quidditch shirts, it's really not. Unfortunately, neither is his art assignment. It's on the previous page of his big sketchbook, hidden away and half finished. The page in front of him is filled with hundreds of small lines, creating the stained glass like grid made up of small pieces. He's not entirely sure what it's supposed to be yet, or if it's supposed to be anything at all, but he'll figure it out eventually. Pidge! Lance whines, and Keith's gaze lifts over his knees and back to the couch. I forgot what to do next. I gave you the algorithms for a reason. I know that. Those are easy. I just don't know when to use them or how to hold the cue, what to look for. He trails off, brows pinching in his confusion as he turns the cue over in his hands. Run it by, run it by me again. Nope, I'm busy. Pidge, ask Keith to help you. What? Him? He asks, incredulous, glances quickly to Keith before turning back to Pidge, lip curling slightly. Pidge gives him a flat look. I taught him years before I taught you. He knows it as well as I do. Doubtful. When we race, it's usually a 50-50 for who wins. That makes his mouth drop open, and his wide eyes slide to Keith, who just smirks at him silently while tapping his pencil on his sketchbook. Think of it this way. Pidge continues, turning a bright grin from Lance to Keith, fluttering their eyes innocently. Who do you have a better chance of cracking, me or Keith? You, Lance says, giving a thoughtful look, have a very good point. Keith. What? Keith says, voice rising in volume and pitch as Lance jumps from the couch, takes a few steps around the coffee table, and launches himself into Keith's bed. It bounces, just slightly, and Keith pulls his knees a little closer to his chest. What's that supposed to mean? He demands, glaring between them. Pidge just smirks from their place on the couch. Lance lies on his stomach on the bed, propping himself up on his elbows and shrugging. Sorry, buddy, but when Pidge gets like this, they're a tiny but immovable rock. I have a much better chance of getting you to help me. From the smile on his face, he doesn't seem very sorry at all. I'm not helping you. Please? No. Keith? No. Keith? He ignores him, turning his eyes back to the sketchbook, and adding a few more haphazard lines. Keith? Lance reaches out to grab Keith's knee, rocking him back and forth. Please, pretty please, with the sugar on top. Please, 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 please. My God. Fine. Just stop shaking me. Jesus Christ. Keith snaps, swatting his hand away. He gives him a heavy glare, lifts burst into a frown, but Lance just beams. He sighs, setting his sketchbook on the floor and stretching his legs out in front of him and reaching towards him. Hand it over. Lance scrambles to his hands and knees, crawling over to situate himself on the bed next to Keith, handing over the cue. He takes it, hating the way their fingers brush simply because he notices that their fingers brush. It's such a simple touch, and it shouldn't mean anything. He shouldn't even have realized it happened, and sure as hell shouldn't be dwelling on it now. He turns the cube over in his hands. Lance has solved the blue side, lined up all the metal pieces, and the corners right. So, next is the second row. It feels Lance's movement when their shoulders bump, which leaves him wondering when they got so close, and hears the roll of Lance's eyes and his voice. Yeah, no Sherlock. I just don't remember how to set up for it. Stone gets a little most pinch with restriction. Or what algorithm to use. Keith feels his lips tilt to smoke. To be honest, I don't really remember the algorithm that Pitch taught me. Wow, Lance admits. You are so much help. Keith shoots him a glare, which Lance returns with an unamused frown, before turning back to the cube and mixing it up again. Hey! Lance snaps, reaching for it. Keith twists, holding it out to the side and out of his reach. He stares hard at the collars, eyes searching for the red pieces and firmly ignoring the heat to Lance's body against his own. In a way he can feel his pulse quickly. Just, I don't remember their algorithm because I do it differently. Just let me show you. Fine, he says, wary as he leans back against the wall, giving Keith his space back. He feels like he can breathe again. Bringing the cube back to his lap, he gets the red side middle pieces in place quickly before holding them. So, I usually solve the red side first, so I might look a little weird to you, but okay. So when Pidge teaches this, they give us algorithms for each step. One row, then a second, then a third. But when I was doing it, I figured out a way to solve the first and second together. Sounds complicated, Lance sounded before. It's easy. Sure thing, Kogani. Whatever you say, even you can figure it out. Wow. Keith gives him a sideways glance, a small smirk curving his lips. His heart does this stupid fluttering number when Lance returns it. He takes his time trying to explain his process. It's difficult. He keeps tripping over his words, having to go back and try to explain it again when Lance doesn't get it right away. His way isn't like Page's. While the method they teach people is straightforward, with an algorithm to guide, his is not. He doesn't have an algorithm. He just sees patterns. He knows where he needs to put a piece and he figures out the pattern of movements to get it there. It's all visual and muscle memory at this point. And surprisingly, Lance gets it. When he realizes that Keith is going to show him a pattern instead of telling him a pattern, he leans a little closer, pays close attention. He tells Keith to do it again and again, and Keith obliges until Lance snatching it out of his hands, saying it's his turn. Keith watches him then, gaze intense as he stares at the cube, teeth nibbling lightly at his bottom lip, brows furrowed just slightly, long fingers hesitant as he turns the cube. It's quiet in the apartment. He hadn't realized Pidge and Hunk had stopped talking, but apparently they were back to working silently. He knows he should probably pick his sketchbook back up, knows he should probably get some work done. But instead, he just watches Lance. Every once in a while, when Lance falters, he reaches over to point something out, to show him what to look for, tell him what turns to make. Then Lance is swatting his hand away, and Keith pulls back, smiling. I did it, he declares, holding the cube up for inspection, grinning proudly. You did, Keith says with a small nod, a slight tilt to his lips. You're actually a better teacher than our resident nerd over there. Thanks, he says, reaching over and plucking the cube from Lance's grip. He turns it over slowly, nodding a little as he makes a show of expecting the cube. Then he mixes it up with several quick, rapid succession movements. Lance keeps next to him, turning off into several creative triangle sounds. Keith's smirk is wide as he turns to him, offering the mixed up cube. Now, do it again. Lance glares, snatching it out of his hand and turning away from him, hunching his shoulder a little as if to shield the cube from his view. I changed my mind. You're both terrible and cruel. Keith chuckles, turning to each piece of gaze across the room. You're right. It is fun to do that. Their smirk mirrors his, lopsided and crinkling their eyes. I know. It's the only reason I like teaching people. When Hawk finishes his essay, they launch into a 20-minute debate about dinner. They can use their meal plans at the cafeteria, but they're tired of the food. Fast food is easier, greasy, and delicious, but has a tendency of being more expensive. Hunk finally convinces them to let him cook. He tries to warn him that his kitchen accommodations are severely lacking, but Hunk just waves him off, telling him that if he can cook in the dorm, he can cook anywhere. They all trudge out to the grocery store a couple blocks away and follow Hunk around while he picks through the aisles, occasionally tossing things at one of them to carry. Lance occasionally bumps the key, which only leads to him lightly shoving back. It turns to a playful push fast that only breaks up when Hunk gives them each a task of finding something on opposite sides of the store. They decide to raise. Lance ends up winning, but it's just slightly off from what Hunk asked for. They decide to call it a tie. They split everything up at the register, pay, and charge back to Keith's apartment. The kitchen is far too small for any of them to help Hunk with dinner, but he doesn't seem to mind. They finish dinner, dirty dishes piled on the coffee table, and halfway through moving, Hunk's soul connection opens up. Lance is the first to notice, maybe because they've been friends for so long, maybe because they're roommates, or maybe just weird, attuned to the subtle differences in those around him. Either way, Lance leans up from where he's laid out across their laps, eyes fixed on Hunk. "You alright there, buddy?" he says, catching Keith's attention. When he looks to the other end of the couch, he sees that Hunk has dipped, sitting ramrod straight, eyes dazed and unfocused, lips gone slack. Keith eyes him curiously, one eyebrow raised. Keith's couch is only one big enough for three of them to sit comfortably, and as such, Lance had taken it upon himself to stretch it out over top of them. He had started with his head on Hunk's end of the couch, poking and prodding Keith with his feet while digging his ass into Fish's lap. That quickly changed when Keith learned that Lance is actually very ticklish, and it was all too easy to enact revenge. So he settled with his head on the armrest on his side, feet propped up by Hunk. As such, the three of them are able to lean close and whisper loudly, all eyes on Hunk. "Is he okay?" Keith asks as Hunk lets out a sound that sounds like a cross between a low whine and a sigh. Hitch leans to his side, lip curling slightly as she shakes her head, eyes on Hunk. "Yeah, he's fine. He gets like this whenever his SM writes to him. Looks like it's overwhelming," he says, uncertain. Hitch shrugs. "Maybe it is. I think he's just a big softie. I think it's cute," Lance says, giving them each a half-hearted, disapproving glare before turning back to Hunk and smiling. "He looks dreamy when the connection is open because he loves her." Keith eyes him wearily, one eyebrow raised. "He's never met her though, right?" Lance browns furrow, head turned as he leans a little off Keith's lap to look at him fully. His lips are pursed into a little frown. "So?" Keith just raised his eyebrows in silent question. He feels like his point is pretty obvious, but he's getting the feeling that pushing his point is a bad move. Lance cracks first. "They're soulmates," he ups, crossing his arms and lounging back against the armrest as he turns his eyes back to Tom. Then, softer, mostly to himself. "They're soulmates, and he loves her." He feels an unpleasant knot forming in his stomach, and he distantly realizes he's staring. With a jerk of his head, he turns back to Hunk, surprised to find marks apparent on his face. Hunk's giggle, voice soft and breathy eyes, squinting shut as he tapers off to a side. It's odd to watch. Keith has never really seen someone's soul mark appear before. He's always seen it as something deeply personal, and in most cases it is, combined with the fact that he doesn't really like thinking about it leaves him looking away whenever Cheryl or Paige would start with their soulmates. But everyone else is watching like it's normal, and it's not like it can really go anywhere. So he watches too. They know it's done when Hunk blinks rapidly, focus coming back to him and pulling into himself, like he's awakening from a dream. When he turns to look at them, his grin is wide. They're simple war paint, like tattoos on his face in classic black and highlighted green. And Keith isn't sure why green is the color of choice, and Hunk holds up his arm to show the words, Your keeper. Good luck at the tournament, scrawled out in a loping script. Keeper. Green. She gave him the face paint for the tournament, and because they were soul marks, they were sure to last through the weekend. That's kinda cute, he supposes. Dude, Lance says, sitting up quickly and putting all of his weight onto Pidge, who makes a pained noise and huffs their annoyance. Lance ignores him, instead reaching for Honk and grabbing his face, tilting it for inspection. This is awesome. Holy crow. Really? Move. I want to see. He shoves Lance's legs off of him and stands, hurrying the bathroom. Lance is left solely on Pidge's lap and makes no effort to move until they dig their fingers to his side. He helps, jumps, and they push, shoving him down to the floor. Rude. Your ass is bony as... Guys, this is so cool. She has some games this weekend, too. Do you think I should do the same for her? Honk says from the bathroom, and when Keith looks over his shoulder, he can see Honk poking at his cheeks from the open doorway. I think Keith has some soul markers. Keith whips around fast enough that he feels the muscle being pulled in his neck. He rubs it, frowning at Pidge. What? They raise an eyebrow. Didn't Shiro buy you soul markers a while ago? The kind that wash off easily? Yeah, he did, he mutters, glancing away. The movie's so plain, but none of them pay attention. Why do they call them soul markers? Lance says from where he's sitting on the floor. He props his arms up on a spot that Punk vacated. They should call them soul markers. That's what I thought. That's what I always thought. Punk calls from the bathroom. Say wavelength. Pidge shoves Lance off the couch to the floor. Anyway, they say, turn red to Keith. Do you have them here? Then Honk can make his ass some similar marks without ruining what she did for him. Oh, that would be awesome, Honk says, coming out of the bathroom and putting his hands on the back of the couch. Yeah, Keith says, pushing himself to his feet and shuffling across the room to his drawers of art supplies. Shiro made me pack them. Hill's voice stays level and bored and doesn't betray the rapid breathing in his chest. He made sure to put away all his soul mark paints and supplies before they all came over. All of them know that Lance's soulmate paints, and Keith really doesn't want them asking questions. Man, this is so sweet. Here's Lance say as he digs around the drawers. He knows exactly where the markers are, but he makes a show of searching anyway. I wish my soulmate would do that for me. I would have killer war paint. Keith snorts slightly, opening up the drawer where he knows the markers are, and digging through them for black and green. Honk has said his essence is a keeper, too, right? Have you ever tried asking them? Words are out of his mouth before he really realizes, and doesn't realize it might be an awkward thing to say until he realizes the apartment has gone quiet. Nothing but the movie plays, and the hair of the back of his neck stands on end. He turns slightly, glancing over his shoulder, and sure enough, they're all staring. He blinks, brows pinching as he frowns. What? Pidge and Honk exchange a look before their eyes slide to Lance, who's made his way onto the couch. He's staring at Keith, lips pursed and brows furrowed, not angry, and not really confused. Surprised, maybe? Thoughtful? Considering? What do you mean? He asks slowly, like he's testing out each of the words on his tongue. Keith feels heat rising up his neck, turns back to the drawer, grabs for a couple of markers, and pushing the drawer closed. I'm just saying, if you want soul mark paint or whatever, maybe you should just ask your soulmate. He turns, holding the markers out to Honk, who takes them with grateful smile and muttered thanks. His grin widens as he hurries to the bathroom, and Keith plops back down in his seat. Both Pigeonlands are still staring at him, and he schools his face into a flat expression as he stares back. What? It's not like they can read your mind. He raises an eyebrow when they exchange an odd look. Have you never asked for so much before? He aims for nonchalance, with a dash of curiosity and mild disbelief. You think he hits a pretty spot on. The question, however, is entirely for formality's sake. He knows Lance has never asked anything of him, even the games they used to play, every conversation they'd ever had. It was all suggestions, a poke and a prod, an open-ended request for him to join in. And every drawing Keith has ever done has been because he felt like it. They all have been for himself, and Lance just has been an intended side effect. He's never been considered the possibility of Lance asking him for a painting. It's never crossed his mind. It just hasn't been how they work. Had it happened several months ago, he probably wouldn't have done it. If his SM had just randomly wrote to him and asked for a specific painting, he no doubt would have felt irritated, bothered, hidden the request until it faded. But that was just several months ago, and this is now. Then his soulmate was just a faceless person that he dreaded meeting, feared seeing, wanted to pretend didn't exist. He tried not to imagine how his paintings looked on anyone other than himself. Now he looks what his art looks like on Lance's skin. Now his soulmate has Lance's face, Lance's voice, Lance's smile. If Lance asks, he doesn't think he could say no. Wouldn't want to deal with the guilt of seeing his disappointment in person. Maybe suggesting this hadn't been a good idea. You might be onto something, Mullet, Lance says, voice soft and thoughtful. Gaze fixed on the TV screen, but eyes distant. There's a soft smile playing at the edges of his lips, and even as dreaded trickles ice through his veins, a shiver of excitement runs out down his spine. He ends up going to the bathroom to help Hawk come up with face paint ideas, and he sits on the toilet while Hawk stands in front of the sink, gazing into the mirror while they talk. He ends up doing something similar to the ones on his own face, but with a dramatic flair that Keith suggests and walks him through. Hawk doesn't have nearly as steady of a hand as his SM, but Keith thinks it'll look fine nonetheless. They end up leaving close to midnight, which is probably far too late when they all have early morning classes, but he knows they all probably stayed up later once they get back to their dorms. Hunk ends up leaving the leftovers, which Keith appreciates. They all shuffle out the door with awkward but genuine waves and fist bumps. It's 30 minutes later when he's in his pajamas, nestled under his blankets, slouched down on his bed with his laptop propped up on his knees, scrolling through the Wikipedia articles when he feels it. He feels the connection open like a soft breeze through a window he hadn't realized was open. A light draft to announce his presence. He stifles, feeling the breath leave him in a rush. He feels the tingling on the side of his forearm, feels the breeze of emotion stem from it, crawling up his arm and settling in his chest. Feels the question, light and hesitant. Feels the doubt, the instant regret souring, sinking low. Feels the solid determination, the carefree bravado attempting to cover it up. Feels it lifting everything else as if it can somehow hide the faint taste of bile and creeping shadows from Keith. It's gone, and almost as soon as it starts, the words on his arm are scribbled quick, as if to get them done before he can stop it himself, as if to get them over with before Keith can feel too deeply through their connection. It's too late though. Lance has always felt deeply and openly, and whenever their connection opens, it's like a rush and a flood, feeling Keith and drowning before rushing away, leaving him reeling and unable to grasp more than vague impressions. So, this is the random and out of blue, but I play Quidditch, like from Harry Potter, and we have a tournament this weekend, and I also snitched for the other teams, and I thought it would be cool to have a snitch like Mark's. He gives a little exhale of a laugh, corners of his lips, despite himself. Now that he knows it lands, he can practically read the words in his voice, practically hear the awkward ramble. What a fucking dork. Keith is really out of bed, padding across his room when he feels it again. This time, it's a quick and airy, a breath instead of a breeze. Emotions oddly muted and dull, but lingering and creeping up his spine, curling into his seat as if trying to hide. Even after the connection closes, they're slow to fade, giving him time to pick them apart. Subconscious doubt, irritation but not a Keith. It's turned inward, at himself, a sigh that feels real enough that a similar one escapes Keith's lungs. Aroma that feels like amusement, but is tingled with a quiver of bitterness that doesn't belong there. Keith frowns, pausing as he looks down at his arm. New words are scribbled beneath the first, smaller and messier. Never mind, don't worry about it. You're probably busy, and this is stupid. Lol. Keith's frown deepens, an odd heat arises in his chest, chasing away the feelings that Lance had left there. He strides across the room with more purpose, practically ripping open the drawers and pulling out the paint that he needs. Ideas already forming. He's never painted like this for anyone except himself, but he thinks this is a good place to start. Kinda see the point of there that when he realizes that they're his soulmates, they probably had to start with this a good place, to get along to each other, to just start with this relationship, and that's what Lance and Keith are working together, and then forming them a puzzle and preparing up for the Quidditch on Saturday. That's as far as I can tell. When I see that Lance and Keith are just talking how the broom set together and Paige is like evil cruel. Same thing as Lance. Oh, they are really cruel, alright. I'm gonna beat their asses for it. Yeah, I'm gonna beat the mud and asses. Oh, I can't swear now because there's a kid right in front of me, so I can't swear right there. But trying to best to bleed them out. But okay, whatever. Lance stands near center line of the field. It's his usual position. Better to stand in the middle or else be accused of favoring one team over the other. That. He's an equal opportunity snitch. Both hands on his hips, weight cocked to the side. Looks like the picture of ease, not a care in the world as the game unfolds in front of him. Chaos with everyone running around, balls being thrown, teams shouting, referee whistles, it all fades to the background. The game is there, but he only pays attention to it enough to avoid hitting anyone. His attention is reserved solely for the two seekers, always aware of them, always calculating where on the field they are, always figuring out who's going to get him first, watching them for signs of how they'll attack next. These two are easy. Their faces broadcast every move they're about to make, which it makes incredibly easy for him to counter. They're nothing like Keith, who has that spark of challenge in his eyes, that fire that burns bright. The way he stalks Lance around the field, body rippling and rolling fluidly, waiting for an opening, striking fast before Lance can figure out what he'll do. Yeah, Keith is a good seeker. These two are mediocre. Both the seekers are slow as they approach, mouths open slightly and chest heaving. They're getting tired, but they haven't been subbed yet, and Lance is starting to think that these teams don't really have seeker subs. A shame, really. There's no challenge in this. One charges first, followed quickly by the other. Lance is in motion just as quickly. He moved toward the first one, grabbing them around their upper arms to keep them from swiping at him and sticking his ass out to get the snitch as far from them as possible. The seeker pushes against his hold, no doubt trying to bulldoze out of it. It's not going to work. Instead, Lance uses their momentum to swing the two of them around, putting the seekers back to the other one, effectively using them as his shield. They can spin around like that for several long moments, one seeker trying to get out of his hold, and the other one trying to get around the first. Lance keeps in motion, constantly moving them so his shield is always in place. He can see them gritting their teeth, sees their frustration. Good. He feeds off of it. It doesn't take too long before a beat tags out the second seeker, just which just makes the one in his arms struggle a little more. They pull back, and Lance lets them go, keeping up his defensive position as the seeker attempts to circle him. He keeps one eye on the seeker going back to their hoops. The seeker in front of him looks like they're bordering on desperate. He smirks, exuding that cocky confidence that snitches are known for and honestly isn't that hard to conjure up. "Beat her to your left," he says. The seeker flinches, turning automatically to look over their left shoulder just as a bludger hits their right side. They gape, turning to frown at the ball as they pull the broom from between their legs. Lance straightens, smirk widening as he feigns innocence. "Did I say your left? I meant my left." They send Lance a dirty look before charging back towards their hoops, and Lance just chuckles. It's not much longer before the snitch ref approaches him and says the head ref has decided to handicap him. Lance grins brightly, putting a hand behind him to rest at his lower back. As the seekers approach again, he feels his grin curl into something more cocky, something more determined. eyes glinting dangerously. The snitch is designed to be caught. The snitch has to be caught for the game to end. It's their purpose, but that doesn't mean he's going to make it easy for them. The snitch is considered a winner if they hold out long enough to be double handicapped, but even being handicapped once is a victory in and of itself. So Lance is going to milk him. He lasts quite a while. The seekers are winded and predictable, and when they switch it out, it's with chasers who don't seem to know that they're doing any better than the designated seekers. He does get caught eventually, but he's not too upset about it. It was bound to happen eventually, especially when he can only use one hand. When the ref blows the whistle to end the game, he shakes his hands with the seekers, patting them on the back. "Nice catch, dude," he says, friendly and smiling and breathing a little heavy himself as he shakes the winner's hand. "Thanks," the guy hopes, a proud smile of his own despite the weirdness around it. He hands Lance the ball back, which he automatically moves to reattach to the Velcro on the back of his waistband. "Nice marks, by the way," he says, then pauses, nose scrunching up. "Is that weird to say?" "Sorry if it is, but they look really awesome." Lance screams, waving off. "I don't know, man. Thanks." He holds out his arms, twisting them to show off the marks. He can feel his face softening as he gazes down at them. Instead of his usual snitch t-shirt, he went for a loose sleeveless yellow muscle tank to show off as much of his arms as possible. The sole marks are gold and yellow, two distinct shades, and they stand out against his skin in beautiful contrast, slightly faded with time, making it look a part of him, but still vibrant. The strands coiled down from his shoulders, waving around his arms, curling off in places, running down the length of his limbs, swirling and weaving together in beautifully elegant patterns to coil playfully around his wrists before stretching out on the back of his hands, breaking apart to bend down the length of each finger, stopping at his nails. The marks run high too, moving over his shoulder, dipping under his collarbone before climbing up his neck, weaving up to and swirl over the edge of his jaw, curl at his cheekbones, in a way that's both fancy yet fierce, framing beneath his eyes. They run low as well, yellow and gold lines weaving flawlessly down his sides to make similar patterns on his legs, which can be seen on the patch of skin between where his shorts end and his tall socks begin. He never did get a response to the question he had asked Thursday night. He had taken a long talk with Hunk and a lot of internal debate to even put a pen to his arm, and he had regretted it almost instantly. After scribbling a sloppy apology, he had curled beneath his blankets and groaned loudly enough that Hunk pulled out the ice cream they had in their mini fridge. He had just taken the bowl from Hunk when he marks started appearing, and he nearly dropped it all over his bed in his surprise. He hadn't gotten a written response, but he had gotten a painting. But it was the emotions that filtered through their connection that really took his breath away. He's never felt his soulmate be so soft before. They've been soft, but it's always been this introspective stillness, a calmness, tranquil and at peace. He's never felt them be soft towards him before, not openly and not like that. And he knows it was towards. He could feel it, could feel the spark and fire of determination that chased away his own fears and doubts, warming in his chest from the inside out. Could feel it with every stroke of their paintbrush, every inch of yellow and gold that appeared on his skin. It's hard to explain how he knows, but he does. He spent long enough listening to his soulmate's emotions to know it. This was the first time his soulmate has ever made something for him, something that wasn't just done for the sake of it, and it was intense. Having all of that directed at him, feeling the single-minded focus, feeling a softness as the initial fire faded, feeling a mild amusement tingling along his fingertips, feeling a dash of pride as swirls came to life, feeling a foreign feeling that was warm in his chest, tingling at his heart, and feeling so oddly fond in a way that was so light and playful. There were several times when Hunk had to remind him to breathe. He's never felt anything like that before, and it was amazing. That's not to say it was entirely without faults. There were shadows of doubt there, too, once the first fire faded. Uncertainty hanging in the wings, a hesitance sometimes that's reared its ugly head, And overall, there was that odd distance he always seems to feel with his soulmate. A distance had reserved feeling. They reached out to him, granted his ridiculous request, and while they seemed happy to do it, there was still an uncertainty and unreadable shadows he could feel lurking beneath it all. But it's enough that it gives him a spark of hope. He hadn't known what words to conjure up after the painting was done and their connection closed, so he had settled for something simple, throwing as much gratitude as he could to his heart as he wrote, "Thanks," across the inside of his wrist. "Your soulmate is crazy talented," the seeker says, drawing him out of his thoughts. "Yeah," Lance says, hands dropping to his sides, head cocked to the side and a small smile on his lips. "They are." "Lance!" He whips his head around, eyes scanning the fields until he sees Pitch. They're on the opposite side of the pitch, waving over. "Let's go! We have a game!" He waves goodbye to the Seekers, stops by to thank the reps, and hurries over to where Pitch is waiting. As soon as he nears, they turn on their heel, jogging off across the field to where the team is gathered a couple pitches over. He jogs after them, easily keeping pace. 4 weekends now. Palmyra University, from what I've seen, they're pretty good. They have a lot of bigger players, and they hit hard. So keep fast and light and avoid being tackled. Got it. Pitch quirks him a lopsided smirk, mischief sparkling in their eyes. From what Lord tells me, they don't let people get close to the hoops, so we're going to need your throwing arm. He cracks a grin, giving them a little mock salute. The sharpshooter is on the case. If you win us this game, I might actually start calling you that. He laughs. I'm holding you to that, Pigeon. The tournament is a big one. The biggest one so far into the school year. The school is hosting it is pretty big, too, and they have the pitches set up all along the field. Schools from all over the state and few in the neighboring states are attending. Lance can't even begin to imagine the administrative headache, but they're doing a great job keeping it organized. So far, they've been winning most of their games, but it's only halfway through the day, and there's still a lot that can go wrong. They slow as they reach the pitch, and Pitch shoves him toward the sidelines where their stuff is gathered. "Hurry up and get changed so you can warm up with the team." "I'm already warmed up. I just snitched the game," he says, giving them a pound. It's completely ineffective. They just give him a flat look and a pointing finger. "I don't care. You're warm up with the team. Now go." "Fine," he says, before jogging away. As he sips through the pile for his bag, he glances up his team. They're gathered on their end of the pitch, standing around in a circle while they stretch together, following Coran as he leads them through the routine. He's been in and out of games and snitching all day, and that doesn't really leave time for him to fully change. So he's gotten in the habit of just wearing his snitch things over his uniform. Slipping out of his snitch shorts is easy, leaving him in his regular athletic shorts. He reaches behind him, grabbing the back of his tank and pulling over his head before stuffing it into his bag. As he stands, all tan Quidditch shirt in hand, he looks up and catches Keith's eye from across the pitch. He has his arm pulled over his chest almost lazily as he follows up the group's stretch. Lance knows he's looking at him, but he might not have realized that Keith was staring at his chest. Had the snap back to his face not been so clean cut, it gives him away in a heartbeat. His smirk's wide, shooting Keith finger guns and chuckling when he looks away, shoulders rising to his ears and lips pursed into a frown. He doesn't know what Keith has to be embarrassed about or jealous of. Yeah, Lance is pretty damn proud of his body, but he saw Keith change last night at Pidgeot's parent place and damn! He pulls his shirt over his head, grabs his wine bandana, and ties it across his forehead as he starts across the field, slipping seamlessly into the circle. Keith avoids eye contact with him across the circle, but Lance manages to catch his eye a couple times, making faces until Keith looks away with that little frown as he does when Lance knows he's trying to hide a smile. He can see the slight crinkle in his eyes. They go through warm-ups, a few practice drills, and then Pitch is calling them over to the sideline. "Alright," they say when the team huddle goes. "This team looks intimidating, but they've only been around about as long as we have. were pretty evenly matched, as far as I can tell. Pass quick, move quick, score and reset, yada yada yada. The usual. You guys got this. Lance, they say, pointing at him. He straightens automatically. You feeling fresh? He grins, giving them a little salute and a wink. As a daisy, coach, they give a little hug and a roll in their eyes, but they're smiling. Good. Our usual starting lineup then. You know the drill. Aye aye, Captain. He feels a tap on his arm as the team starts to disperse, and he glances over to find Keith holding out one of the PVC pipe bombs. He grins, taking it. Thanks, dude. Keith gives him a small shadow of a smile before turning toward the hoops, and Lance follows him out. Their beginning strategy is simple, but highly effective. Keith is easily the fastest sprinter they have. Definitely the fastest from a standstill. He positions himself at the center, lined up perfectly with the quaffle in the middle of the pitch. Meanwhile, Allure and Lance line up on the far end, one on each side. When the whistle blows, they all run forward, Keith from the quaffle, and Lance and Allure past the center line and onto the other side of the pitch to set up for a pass. Usually they can manage to get the first point before either team really has a chance to set up defenses. And this time is no different. The whistle blows and Keith smirks, that proud little smirk that used to make him write with irritation. He doesn't anymore. Now it just makes him feel oddly warm. Nice shot, Lance says, jogging up past him as they head back to their side of the field to reset. He holds up and Keith bumps it. Nice pass. Lance wants to say more, wanted to keep banter going, but the game is on. Heads up! They're coming back! He says instead, turning around and facing the oncoming chasers. As Pitch had predicted, their teams are closely matched. They subbed out constantly and quickly to keep everyone fresh. There's not much room for conversation. Lance quickly falls into the game and given it his complete focus. He's proud of his team. They've come so far in just a couple of months. Shiro and Laura, as it turns out, were an incredible team. They're fantastic defensive chasers, just as Keith and Lance make a great offensive team. Pitch and Coran make an insanely unstoppable beater team, to the point where they've started calling them the Weasley twins. There are a few older players with them that fit into the lineups easily, quickly adjusting to each team they play, and there are a few new players who are still rough around the edges. But that's fine, because when it comes down to it, they're having fun. How's the arm doing? Lance says, pulling out a water bottle to Keith as he comes off the field. He takes it gratefully, drinking it quickly and spilling some down his chin. My arm? He asks, one arm raised as he lifts the hem of his shirt to wipe off his mouth. Lance tries his best not to stare, but goddamn, how are those abs even legal? He doesn't trust his voice at the moment, so he just gestures to Keith's arm, where the compression sleeve rests along the length of his forearm, from elbow to wrist. There's barely a strip of skin showing between that and Keith's athletic gloves. Keith drops his shirt, blinks in confusion, and then looks at his arm, like he had completely forgotten it was there. Oh, he says, something oddly blank in his voice. Right, yeah, it's fine. It's a little weird. Before Lance can question further, Pitch is shoving a broom into his hands and pushing him out onto the field. Now Lance loves Hunk with all his heart, but he knows the guy isn't a good runner. It's half the reason he's their keeper. It turns out he's a damn good beater as well, with a heavy-hitting arm that can peg people across the field, but he loses the advantage when he has to run after the ball. It's not that he can't run, it's just that he gets winded easily and quickly. Not a lot of endurance. But he doesn't need that to be a good keeper. He needs a damn good keeper. He's tall and has a wide reach, and while he's not a good runner, he's quick to move around the hoops, guarding each one as needed. His hand is huge, allowing him to easily palm the ball, snatch it out of the air, or just whack it away when someone takes a shot. Not to mention, his size makes him incredibly intimidating. Lance has seen chasers actually hesitate when they change toward the hoops, just from having Hunk drop down into a defensive stance, holding his arm out wide. It's that moment of hesitance that allows him to swat away the ball, or for a chaser to swap in and pluck it away. But just because Hunk doesn't like to run doesn't mean he can't. And just because he gets winded quickly doesn't mean he's not fast. Because as it turns out, Hunk is a surprisingly good sprinter. And when he does it, it's usually very surprising for the other team. There's a reason they call Hunk their tank. The other team charges their side of the field, putting them on fence. Bludgers fly, beaters scrambling to claim them. The chasers shoot, but it's a long shot. Hunk easily jumps, snatch it out of the air before it makes it to the center hoop. Lance sees the glint in Hunk's eyes before his feet even hit the ground, and he grins wide, knowing exactly what's coming. Hunk lands, digs his cleats into the dirt, and takes off. The thing about Hunk sprinting is this: he runs straight, fast, unyielding, and unstoppable. And if you're in the way, it's terrifying. A laugh bubbles out of his throat as Hunk shoves through the mass of people. Whoops, a loud "Go Hunk, go!" as he breaks out chaos. Neither team has had time to reset or to really even process it before it happens. All the chasers turn to gape. An opposing chaser yelps in surprise as Hunk charges past them while they head back to their hoops after being tagged out. He's on the break anyway. Just him, the opposing keeper, and the hoops. The enemy beaters are charging after him, but Lance knows they won't make it in time. The only thing that can stop him is the opposing keeper, and usually typically that doesn't happen. Not when they have the full force of Hunk charging down the field at them. This keeper, however, isn't moving. They brace themselves, planting their feet and bending their knees, arm held out and alert. It's only then that Lance realizes that their keeper is just as big as Hunk is, and they're standing unafraid, unflinching, solid, an immovable object in the face of an unstoppable force. And as Lance watches, they collide. He knows it's not entirely logical for there to be sound, but Lance swears he can hear the moment they hit. The opposing keeper steps forward, catching Hunk and stopping his forward momentum. There's a moment where it seems like time slows, like time frozen. The Hunk's momentum shifts, and he's falling backwards. Falls hard. No doubt caught completely off guard. It's understandable. The entire field is in shock. Lance distantly realizes that the whole pitch, both teams, are completely silent and still, simply staring. No one had ever seen someone completely lay Hunk out like that. Lance isn't even entirely sure what happened. It was so fast. One moment Hunk was running, then they met, and Hunk was suddenly lay out on his back, arms spread wide as the quaffle rolls instantly away from his hand. The moment stretches, the pitch feeling muted and unmoving, movement happening on the field around them, sounds from the other games trickling in, but their own game frozen in time. Then all at once, it snaps. There is a flurry of sound, shouts, a collective groan of ouch, where whispers. Lance is already darting across the field to where his best friend is still lying on the ground. The opposing keeper is leaning over him, holding out their hand. Hunk takes it, and they heave him to his feet. He staggers, and they put their other hand on his arm to steady him. And then they just stare. Lance slows as he nears them, frowning a little in his confusion. They're not talking, just staring at each other, neither of them moving, and neither of them dropping their hands. "Hunk!" he calls out, putting a hand on Hunk's shoulder. When he turns to look at him, his mouth is hanging open, eyes wide with shock, but the look in them looking for distance and daze. Oh man, he really hopes he didn't crack his head on the ground. Concussions are no fun. With a little firmer of a hold, he turns Hunk to face him. He moves easily enough, hand dropping away from the other keeper. "Hey, buddy, you okay? Hit your head?" Looks out of breath, eyes darting around Lance's face, like he's trying desperately to come back to reality, but it's hard for him. He can't seem to focus. His mouth moves, but nothing besides strangled sounds come out. His eyes look a little glassy, but Lance is willing to bet that's just from the body's reaction to physical shock rather than actual pain. "Hunk, come on, buddy. Speak to me," he says, putting both hands on his shoulders. Give him a little squeeze. "Shay!" The other team captain calls out, waving their keeper to the sidelines. Lance doesn't pay much attention to it, even as something nags at the edges of his memory. Out of the corner of his eye, he sees the keeper hesitate before turning and jogging away. "Lance!" Hunk finally says, mouth forming words slowly, and voice sounding just as dazed as he looks. "Yeah, buddy?" His lips curled then. This slow progress upward, 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 until it's the biggest fucking grin he thinks he's ever seen. His eyes, however, remain distant, even as they crinkle at the edges. I think I'm in love. Lance quirks an eyebrow, a frown pursing his lips. Come again? All at once, Hunk's eyes snap back to focus. Sharp and excited, he grabs Lance, wraps him up in a hug, and pins his arms to his sides as he picks him up, twisting back and forth and making his legs dangle beneath him. The air rushes out of him as he's squeezed. Dude, it's her. Her? Lance manages to squeak out, sounding breathless and strained. Her, dude. Her. My soul. Holy sh... Lance. My soulmate. My soulmate. It's happening. It's actually happening. The realization sets in, and Lance looks over Hunk's shoulder. The keeper is standing by her team, but she's half turned, eyes looking just as dazed, glistening in the afternoon sun, lips lax and parted as she gazes at Hunk. The soul marks on her cheeks match those on Hunk. Shay, Hunk's soulmate, their first meeting. His heart flutters, excitement bubbling up in his chest as Hunk babbles. His breath catches, his smile on his lips, just as the happiness in his veins sours, bile on the back of his tongue. His smile stays fixed firmly in place, but he knows it doesn't reach his eyes. His gut twists uncomfortably, a wave of nausea rolling through him. His limbs buzz, feeling numb and detached. Feels like his own soul marks are burning away at his flesh. Another first meeting, another friend meeting their soulmate, another happy couple, just like his parents, just like his siblings. And he can't help the sinking feeling racing through him, dragging him down to a pit of despair that he's tried so hard to stay out of. Feels the shadows tugging at his skin, nipping at his ankles, because he has this terrifying numb feeling that his own first meeting is still far, far away. His own soulmate is far, far out of reach. He's happy for Hunk, he really is. He's ecstatic, and his best friend deserves the world. But happiness for Hunk doesn't entirely ease the loneliness that tugs at his heart. As you can see in the middle of the game that, oh my hands, this is like in the middle of the game when they're playing the Quidditch, Hunk realizes that he has a crush on somebody. He has a soulmate, and its name is Shay. So I think I know who Shay is because, no, that's from the beginning of the season. It's not the beginning of the season, it's probably season 2 or season 3. He fell in love and he doesn't realize that we got another power couple going on with Hunk and Shay. And it was so, in fact, it's really amazing that they're still into it and they're having a date. Oh man, oh my god. I guess they're going to date. Yeah, when they're in the middle of the game and they're going against the Bumerian University with all this people who are just grunging up the Seekers, or they're talking all the Seekers, they're like big Buffy, just as big, it's just as big as Hunk. And yeah, once he started playing along, he has that little feeling, so just gonna lazen up to their mind. He's happy for Hunk, he really is, but that doesn't stop the jealousy. It's not an ugly kind of jealousy, the kind that rots and festers and leads to anger and resentment. It's a quieter kind, the kind that aches bone deep, making him wish he had what Hunk has and feeling emptier because he doesn't. He sits on the little hill that borders the white field, leaning up to the parking lot. His knees are bent, arms crossed over top them, leaning forward to rest his chin on them. Their team has finished all their scheduled games, and they're just waiting for everyone else to finish up so the bracket can be completed and posted. Only 2 of the pitches are occupied with games, and the rest of the field is just Quidditch players milling around, waiting. His own team is scattered around, but it's pretty easy to spot them with their Altane Quidditch shirts. His eyes are Hunk, sitting with Shay on sidelines of one of the active pitches. Neither of them are actually watching the game. They are turned around each other and neither of them touching, but close enough that they don't need to. Can't see the details of his friend's face at this distance, but that doesn't stop his smile from being a beacon of happiness. It warms his chest even as it stings. They won their game against Balmer University, but it hadn't been by much. Needless to say, both teams had been shaken by the first meeting that had taken place on the pitch. The game carried on once they were certain that Hunk was okay after his fall, but news of the soulmate spread like a wildfire of whispers. It became very clear very quickly that neither Hunk nor Shay were going to be able to focus much on the game. Even after the pitch gave Hunk a pep talk, dragged him down to their level, and went so far as to slap him across the face. So both teams ended up using their keeper subs. The difference was that their keeper sub was still a rookie, and the Balmerian's keeper sub knew what he was doing. So the Chase had their work cut out for them, trying to keep the opposing chasers from scoring enough points in return to keep them in the game. Keith ended up having to play defense for a while, keeping the other seeker from getting near the snitch. He kept a close eye on the game though, and he switched gears as soon as Lance called out to him, giving him the signal to catch the snitch. It didn't take too long, and Lance made a hard effort to keep the other team from scoring to give Keith time. It was a close game, a good game, and everyone was more focused on grinning Hunk and Shay away. The Balmerian players patted Hunk on the shoulder and congratulated him as they passed, and Lance was the first to bound across the field and officially introduce himself to Shay as Hunk's best friend. The others had followed, and Hunk had criticized them for being too overwhelming. Lance had been the loudest, smiled the brightest, shown the most interest in Shay, wrapped his best friend up in hugs, talked him up, laughed the longest and loudest. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he had known he was overdoing it. He had known, could see himself doing it, but he couldn't stop it. It was like the word vomit. His volume control was broken. He knew why he had done it too. It was overcompensation for the ugly feelings he was trying to keep buried deep down inside. So he showed his excitement, amped it up, and hoped no one could see the shadows in his eyes. It had worked. No one had questioned him. No one had given him strange looks. No one thought anything of it, despite how embarrassingly overboard he was being. And now, he was alone and off to the side, away from his team and his friends. He's finally able to let himself stop smiling, to loosen that vice-like grip on his heart, let those feelings bleed out like a little before they choke him. He allows himself to watch Hunk and Shay from across the field, allows himself to stretch his arms out in front of him. The eyes locked up his yellow and gold toe marks, and allows himself to wish that it had been him. That is, until something cold and wet presses to the back of his neck. He yelps, lurching forward, one hand flying to his neck as he turns to stares, eyes narrowed and lips parted in surprise. Keith stands above him, lips curled into a small, lopsided smirk, a Gatorade bottle held out to him. We just got back from the nearby gas station, he says when Lance continues to glare. He gives the bottle a little encouraging shake. Allura said the red kind is your favorite, so... And hey, free drinks? How can you stay mad? Thanks. Taking the offered bottle enough to let Keith know he doesn't appreciate the rude awakening, even if he is forgotten. Keith sits next to him on the hill. They both crack open the drinks, taking a sip and simply enjoying the silence. It's not awkward, nor it's uncomfortable. Lance has always been someone who enjoys the noise and din, who thrives on conversation, but he's quickly finding out that he can enjoy Keith's company without it. That with Keith, he can appreciate the sounds without feeling the needling pressure to feel it. But right now, silence means thinking about things he'd rather not think about. What flavor did you get? He asked, glancing over as Keith twists the cap back on. He pauses, mid-twist glancing down at the bottle before looking to Lance. Blue. Lance snorts, feeling his eyes crinkle as he fights down a smile. Yeah, no What flavor, Keith? Not what color. He glances back at his bottle, lifting it a little as he turns it over in his hands. His brows pinch, lips pressing together into his fall frown. It's an expression Lance is becoming increasingly familiar with, and one he's becoming increasingly more fond of. He holds out the bottle for Lance to see. It just says Cool Blue. What does that even mean? He then leans over to nudge Keith's shoulder with his own. He hadn't realized until they made contact just how close they'd been sitting. What does it taste like, dude? Keith shrugs at that, pulling up his knees and resting his arms on them, letting the bottle dangle between them, held loosely on his fingertips. Tastes like blue. And lightning, he deafens, but the smile on his lips ruins the effect. Keith just hums his acknowledgement, and they lapse back into silence. His eyes drift over the field, but they inevitably drift back to Hunk. It's hard to tell from this distance, but it looks like he and Shay have started holding hands. The kind of shy way of holding hands when both people want it, but neither acknowledges it, leaving their touches hesitant and innocent and exhilarated. He feels his sigh more than hears it, feels it leave his lungs, feels the droop in his shoulders, feels the longing in his heart, feels the burn of his soul marks. What's been so proud of just earlier that day, what had filled him with excitement and hope, now just acts as a grim reminder that this is all he has. His soulmate is a person of few words, and the words they do share are rarely personal. Hawk and Shay, even Lure and Shiro, they have been close even before their first meeting. They have been loving and fond and talked. Lance is coming to the conclusion that even if he and his soulmate do meet soon, it'll be nothing like what his friends have. Nothing like that close. Personal bond that sparks and ignites. Nothing like the sweet young love that they have. Like his parents have. Like his sibling have. It's a notion that festers. Shadows that nibble at his heart, eating away at the fraying edges of his hope. He's not stupid. He knows that not all summits have fairy tale stories, but he had always assumed he would. The realization that he might not makes his heart sink into his stomach like stone, feeling like the weight of 100 bricks are pressing in on his chest, making his blood feel cold. He hates it. He hates feeling this way. He hates losing hope in his homie, in them, together, as a pair. Makes him feel like he's somehow betraying them already before they've been met. He wants to happen for his friends, wants their happiness to somehow ignite his own hope, wants to remain firm and strong. His soulmate deserves that, at least. But who's going to stay strong for him? You okay? The question catches him off guard, breaks through his mental enlightenment like a stone dropped into a small pond. Spoken in a voice that's soft and low, soothing in pitch and bordering on indifferent in tone. But the simple act of it alone speaks of worry. He's familiar with that tone, has heard it from others and used it to himself. It's not just often he hears that particular more for Keith, and that's more concerning than anything. Has it been that obvious? So, naturally, he plasters a smile on his face, hoping it chases the shadows from his eyes, swishing down with those riffing negative emotions and shrugs off. Of course, he says, nonchalant and a picture of ease. It's familiar, like slipping on an old and worn painting. Why wouldn't I be? When Keith doesn't say anything right away, he risks a glance. He's staring at him, brows furrowed and lips quirked downward. His eyes search Lance's face in a way that makes him feel far too exposed, yet unable to look away, left on display for Keith to examine. Whatever he finds just makes that frown deepen a little further. Keith looks away first, turning his gaze back to the field stretched out before them. He looks calm, at ease, but Lance is wary. I saw you earlier, he says simply, matter of fact. It wouldn't be so concerning if his voice wasn't pitched low, like he were breathing in a secret between them. Earlier? Asked Query. He glanced sideways at him before his eyes looking away. After the thing with Hunk, when you thought no one was looking, he squirms a little, scratching the back of his neck and refusing to look at Lance. You didn't look happy. I'm happy for him, he says, voice resting a little, feeling his back straighten a little, and Keith gives him an impressed look, raising one eyebrow. Lance frowns. I am, Keith hums, monotone and blank, looking away across the field. Lance feels himself deflate. He could keep fighting it. He knows he could. He could keep insisting he's fine, but Keith has noticed something that he tried so hard to hide, something that he barely wanted to acknowledge to himself. He doesn't know if Keith is the only one who noticed, but he's the only one who's approached him about it. And there's something about Keith, something about the way he doesn't push, about how matter-of-fact he is, about how calm he is, about how he doesn't seem to blame Lance at all for what he's feeling. He doesn't try to shame or fix it, just content to let Lance feel whatever he's feeling. All Keith does is acknowledge it, and then leave it alone. Like he's opening the door, but he's not pushing Lance through. He's waiting patiently, letting Lance make his own decision. And there's something about it that makes Lance want to open up to him, if only a little. He sighs, defeat deflating at the last of his bravado. I really am happy for him. He leans forward, crossing his arms over his knees and resting his chin on them. I just kinda wish that were me, you know? Keith hums, thoughtful and listening. I don't, he says after a long one, but I think it's understandable to feel that way. He says nothing more, and neither does Lance. He doesn't feel like he needs to say anything more. Without really saying much at all, Keith gives him the impression that he understands. That Lance doesn't need to explain himself or to ramble. Keith just gets it, even if he doesn't feel the same way, and there's no sense of judgment or disappointment. Just companionable silence. What about you? He asked, quiet and tentative. If Keith has gone through the extra effort to check on him, the, the least he can do it return the favor. Out of the corner of his eye, he sees Keith glance at him. What about me? Asked slowly, cautious and confused. Lance tilts his head, resting his cheek on his arms and fixing his eyes on Keith. On the way, his yellow headband pushes his hair up at odd angles, and how his ponytail is a mess. Loose hairs curling around his nape. On how his cheeks and nose are just a little pink from the beginnings of a sunburn. Paige told me you don't like talking about soulmates, he says softly. He watches his key visible bristle before looking away, eyes on the ground and lids purse. I don't. Then why did you come to talk to me about it? Because you looked like you needed it, he says simply, with a careless shrug of his shoulders. And that, in and of itself, makes Lance's chest feel warm, makes his stomach flutter with a feeling of surprised contentment. It's a feeling he's familiar with, a feeling he gets a lot around Hunk and Pidge, Allura and Karan, the feeling of being cared about by someone he holds dear. When had Keith managed to worm his way into Lance's life like this? It happened so slowly, so subtly, that Lance hadn't realized how much he cares until its warmth that's spreading through his veins like wildfire, tingling his fingertips and curling his toes. He doesn't know what to say, so he props his chin up and gazes out over the fields, mindlessly settling his eyes on one of the games, without really watching it, letting the warm bubbling feeling in his chest chase away his doubts and his fears. Game that Hunk and Shay have been watching ends, and the teams disperse from the field, but neither of them move. A few others have joined them. A few from Balmero U, as well as Pidge and Allura. They all look happy, smiling and laughing, talking with their hands and playfully shoving one another. It's an odd feeling to realize that he doesn't actually mind that he's not part of it, that he doesn't mind sitting on his hill next to Keith, enjoying the warmth of the fall, sun warming his skin. So, Keith starts, poking at the signs before treading off. Lance turns to look at him, one eyebrow raised. Keith mirrors his look, expression, and voice deepens. Are the booty shorts really necessary? Lance blinks, confusion quickly giving way to indignation. He says straighter, turning to more fully faced Keith, frown on his face. What's wrong with my shorts? Keith shrugs, the shadow of a shirt tugging at its corner of his lips. Aren't they a little... He glances down at the shorts in question before lifting his gaze again, cock an eyebrow. Much? Lance huffs, leaning back to cross his arms over his chest. I'll have you know that this is tradition. He's definitely smirking now, amusement sparkling in his eyes. His voice, however, remains incredibly blank, though Lance is certain he can hear a small waver there. I know, Laura told me. So, you know it's expected of me. His smile starts to crinkle at the edges of his eyes. Is it though? It is! Lance rolls backward, turning onto his side as he lays down. Propping himself on an elbow, he stretches one leg up in the air, pulling it clearly on display. He's not wearing his snitch shorts, just his usual ones, revealing the plenty of smooth thigh and the mark that twists around it. These beauties are our secret weapon, Keith. He rests an elbow on his knees, lifting him to rest his chin in it, effectively using his hand to hide a smile. Lance can see in his eyes. If you do it every time, is it really a secret? What you have against my legs, Keith? He says, doing his best to sound indignant and outraged. Nothing. Appreciate them, he says, sticking his leg out in front of Keith, nearly hitting him in the face. My God. Appreciate them, he repeats, louder laughter finally breaking through. Keith laughs too, spewing out half-formed curses as he swats Lance's legs away. He's not one to be deterred, however, and keeps at it, enjoying the sound of Keith's laughter breaking through his frustration, and just like that, he feels lighter. The heaviness had been pressing in on his chest is gone. It's still there, lurking in the back of his mind, but it's not haunting him, not dragging him down. In this moment, it feels like he can actually go hang out with Hunk and get to know Shay without feeling like he's forcing a smile. For one brief fleeting moment, Lance thinks that life would be a lot simpler if Keith were his soulmate, and that thought is like a punch to his gut, making him feel far too many things to decipher. So when Keith shoves him hard, he lets himself roll down the hill away from him. Keith left from the spot on the hill as Lance comes to a stop at the bottom, limbs spread wide and feeling dazed as he stares at the sky. Only one thought keeps repeating in his mind, one solid and resounding, "What the?" I would say that it's not bad when he had this reaction of when it's the reaction of Shay and Hunk are meant to be together, and then Lance questioned about the connection of where his soulmate is going to go, and he has his own soulmate too. Could they feel that their connection is going through after Sharon and Laura have finally met each other and Hunk and Shay are finally met together? Yeah, they do. And now this is where it comes down to this, and it's just a little off the lift or something. It's just, kind of shifty down or something. I mean, if Key and Lance knew what was happening when they have first connection, you probably understand that. Guys, we really don't have to do this, Hunk says, pushing his index fingers as he shifts his weight from foot to foot. Too late, Pitch says offhandedly, helping unbag all the bottles and spread them out over the counter. We're doing this, but your parents, they won't be back until tomorrow. We'll have this place cleaned up and be out by then anyway. But we're all pretty tired. Hunk, buddy, oh pal, homeo bromeo, my dude. Lance says, throwing an arm over Hunk's shoulders and laying heavily into his side. How often do you have a first meeting? Well, technically, only once. Exactly, he says, slapping his free hand on Hunk's chest. So, we're going to celebrate. We could have just waited until we got back. No time like the present. Coran says, dropping the last of the bags on the counter with a loud clank. You're supposed to be like older and more mature, Hunk says, lips pressing out in a small pout. Coran just grins, shrugging his mustache and leaning back against the counter while Laura helps Pitch unbag everything. Oh yes, quite true. And I'm maturely enabling you all to have fun time and celebration for your first meeting. Come on, buddy, little. Lances, then leans in close to loudly whisper, how often do we get free booze? And fancy booze at that. Hunk eyes the bottles rarely before his eyes with a friend. At least, let us help pay for it all, he says, ignoring Lance's speak of indignant protest. But Grant just waits him off. Nonsense! Consider this my congratulations to you, as well as celebration for our team of our first tournament. Besides, I've been meaning to stock up my personal collection, so anything we don't drink will be coming home with me. Hunk's shoulders droop, his resolve crumbling without a sigh. Fine. Yes. Lance jumps in often, bird shooting to the air as he dances around the circle. Shots! Hey, team, get in here. Team meeting in the kitchen. Pitch calls out, standing on her toes to reach the shot glasses from one of the cabinets, pulling them all down. After watching them struck for a moment, Allura helps chuckling at Pitch's sudden glare. Then they sigh. Then Allura gets the rest. Your parents have one hell of a shot glass collection, she mumbles. Pitch shrugs, leaning back against the counter and crossing their arms over their chest. They like souvenirs, clearly. The team slowly filters into the kitchen, sticking and crowding to the outside of the room, pressed up against the counters to create a wide circle. Lance hovers close to Pidge. Allura and the booze lean up against Hunk's side. Alright. So, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it right. House rules. Watch yourself. We wanna have fun, not get blackout drunk. You make a mess, you clean up. If you feel like you coming on, you get your ass to the bathroom or the backyard. Don't break drink water. We're all hella dehydrated after playing all day. We hangovers are a bitch, and you can snack on whatever food you find in the house. They clasp their hands together, pushing off the counter and gesturing to our Laura is neatly lining up the shot glasses. Coran provided us with everything, so make sure you thank him. Collectively, as if on cue. The entire team does a chorus in every monotone. Thanks, Gran. He grins, waving off thing. Thank you, everyone, for your hard work today. There are many things here, and I have quite a few recipes up my sleeve, so I will gladly make any of you whatever drinks you decide, and perhaps surprise you with some you never had. Ready? Allura says, stepping back and making sweeping gestures to the counter. Alright, so we're gonna start with a group shot to toast to Hunk and his first connection. There's a few whoops and scattered applause, to which Hunk just smiles, scratching the back of his neck, cheers reddening. So, everyone, come up and pick your poison. If you don't want to drink, you don't have to. No shame, no judgment. But let's get the show on the road. Lance steps up to an edge, swiping a few shots of glasses and a bottle of tequila. He pours one for himself and one for Hunk, handing it to him before calling out, Tequila over here! Come and get it! He glances over the crowd in the kitchen, eyes flickering over Keith before snapping back. Keith is staring at him, arms crossed loosely over his chest while he waits for others to get their shots. Lance cocks an eyebrow, smiling as he lifts the bottle in Sam's question. Keith's smirk is small, but definitely there as he nods. Lance pours and holds it out to him as Keith sets up. Before he can take it, however, Shiro swoops in. He slides in with far more grace and fluidity than a man his size has any right to have, and snatches and shot right out of Lance's hand, holding it above his head. Oh, no you don't. Keith stands there, hand poised in the air to take a shot of glass that's no longer there, and then blinks. Then narrows his eyes at Shiro, frowning, forming a small pout. Shiro just shakes his head, chuckling as he steps back, carefully lowering the shot glass back to their reasonable height. Glare at me all you want. We're not having another Tala Tequila incident. Lance quirks an eyebrow. Tila te what now? Shiro gives him a flat look that's somewhat ruined by the ghost of a smile, threatening the corners of his lips. Let's just say Keith doesn't handle tequila very well. I handle it just fine, he huffs, crossing his arms over his chest. Shiro raises an eyebrow, shrugging one shoulder. You keep telling yourself that, but you're not drinking tequila tonight. Keith huffs aside, looking away and muttering, Fine, before turning to where Paige is pouring out rum. Once he's gone, Lance turns to Shiro. So, he says, slowly conversationally, Tila tequila, huh? Shiro shakes his hand, small smile on his face. My lips are sealed. And smile drops. Let's burst into a small bout. You're no fun. Shiro just laughs, patting him on the shoulder before walking away. They had ended up staying until the end of the tournament. They made it through most of the bracket but lost in the semifinals. Balmero and you made it to the last game. They stayed to watch the final. Sun lowering in the late afternoon sky, causing the field in warmer tones. They weren't the only team that had stayed. The final pitch was lined with people, their team crowded together. Lance and hung as close to the sidelines as they dared, nudging him and talking to him about Shay. With just the two of them, he felt lighter, less like he had to pretend. He wasn't sure if it was because they were more or less alone, or if it had to do with his talk with Keith. It didn't dwell on it too much. The fact remained that he could gush with his best friend about his soulmate without his own heart breaking. Keith sat with Pitch further back in the crowd, huddled under the blanket that Pitch always brought into every Quidditch event. They spoke in hushed tones, watching something in Pitch's phone. Both their hair was a mess, stuck up at the odd angles from dry sweat and their headbands. He was staring until Keith met his gaze, surprise in his eyes at whatever expression was during Lance's face. He had turned back around quickly and made a point not to look at them again until the game was over. Balmero had lost in the finals, but they had come out of it in good spirits. After some messy organizing, they managed to find a pizza place to accommodate both teams for dinner. It was a mess. It was loud. It was crowded. But it was a good company, cozy, and they tipped their servers well for putting up with them. Lance had ended on the opposite side of the table from Keith, who was pressed between Pidge and Shiro, and he tried not to dwell on the odd sense of disappointment that nagged at his chest. Instead, he focused on the Balmerian players around him, getting to know them and Shay in a tag team socialization that he and Hunk had perfected over the years. Afterwards, they had all headed back to Pidge's parents' house to celebrate. To Hunk, Pidge says, once everyone who wants to drink has a shot in hand. They raise their glasses, using the voice they cultivated to gather demand attention. Everyone lifts their glasses at once, shouting a chorus of "To Hunk!" They all down their shots with their various degrees of success, and after the coughing and laughter had subsided, Lance slams his glasses onto the counter to get their attention. All right, So who's up for some Circle of Death? That was the only last thing I could find. Okay, I gotta do this very quickly now. I'm gonna have to get to class now. But you probably know the warning about this whole drinking and whatnot stuff. It takes them a lot longer than expected to get everyone gathered in a living room, sitting in a large loose circle. That mostly has to do with the fact that Karan has insisted on mixing everyone's first drink of the evening himself. Add to the fact that organizing a group of people larger than 5 easily turns into chaos. So, nearly 45 minutes later, they finally ready. Everyone's sitting around while Pitch rambles through the rules. Fancy makes drinks in their hands. Lance is already halfway gone. Circle of Death is and always have been the Quidditch party tradition at Altea University, mostly because they're the ones who started the team, and it's always been the favorite among them. So they started influence, in its opinion. It's a good game to get parties started, get the buses going, and get everyone together. They've done it so often that it feels odd to have a Quidditch party without it. Their main rule is simple. You don't have to drink, but it's highly encouraged you to play, even if it's just with water or soda or juice. Lance sits on the crowded floor, pressed tight between Hunk and Keith, ignoring the fact that he's far more aware of one side than the other. But this is fine. It's only because he's not as used to Keith and being close to Keith as he is with Hunk. And if his hair stands on end every time Keith's arm brushes against his, yeah, that's totally normal. Totally normal. When they're done with the rude spiel, something Lance had heard 1,001 times to the point where he can't even think about them without hearing them in Pidge's voice. Pidge leans forward to the circle of face-down cards in the center of the room and flips one. It's a 4. There's half a second while everyone observes that information before the room is a flurry of movement and filled with dull thunks as everyone slaps a hand to the floor. Everyone except for Keith. Lance turns to grin at him, eyes squinting as he takes in Keith's obvious confusion. The raised brows, lips parted and slack, blinking as he takes in everyone's current position, back straight from where he had jumped. There's a chorus of his name as everyone calls him out, and he turns to Lance for clarification. 4 is floor, he says, grin fixed in place as he leans to the side to nudge him with his shoulder. Last one to touch the floor has to drink. So, bottoms up, dude. He makes that face that he no doubt thinks is a scowl, but comes across as a pout and takes a drink, and the game goes on. After that, Keith picks it up pretty quickly. He's never the last when 4 or 7 is drawn, but Lance is once or twice when he's caught up in conversation. What can you say? Keith is distracting. Cards are drawn, people are chosen to drink. Sometimes they drink simply because there's a glass in their hands, and doing so is almost an subconscious game. Pidge pulls a king and declares a little man rule, which Lance hates, and they know it. He knows they know it because they give him this little amused smirk and salute him with a glass. Mostly, Lance just hates the little man rule because he always fucking forgets, which just leads him to getting called out and forced to drink again. This time is no exception. A group waterfall has him and several others emptying their drinks, and he wordlessly takes Keith's empty glass. He's a little surprised when Keith lets him without complaint, instead just giving him a small, shy smile. And if it's cute and does weird things to Lance's heart, well, he doesn't have to think about that. The game is paused while people get refills, and Lance stumbles back, glasses held high as he picks his way through the people on the floor. He sits heavily, still pressed close to Keith, despite the fact that the Hunk is gone and he has no reason to. He leans in close to talk to Keith in muted whispers, not entirely sure what he's saying, just knowing that he wants to talk to him. When the Hunk comes back and feels his face again, pressed up to Lance's other side, he feels a little better. Grant draws a king and abolishes the little man rule. Thank, and declares his favorite and go-to rule: accents. Everyone has to speak in an accent that isn't their own. It's usually hilarious and chaotic. This time is no exception. Grant declares the rule in a thick Russian accent, and Lyra responds in a thick Cockney. Lance immediately slips into terribly over-dramatized Spanish accent. It's not from any particular place, and he knows it, and it would no doubt make all of his ancestors cringe. Hell, it even makes him cringe a little bit, but it gets laughs out of his friends, so he calls it a win. His use of choppy and random Spanish words and phrases completes the charade. He's not sure what to expect from Keith, but when it turns to him, sees that cocky little smirk and hears a low, sudden drawl roll of his tongue. Lance feels his own voice die in his throat. That should not be as attractive as it is. It should not affect him like it does. The point of this game is to sound ridiculous and go overboard, not do whatever it is that Keith is doing. Eventually the game ends, the last card being the Jack and putting them in a game of Never Have I Ever. And when that's said and done, they keep going. People start to trickle away for refills and grouping up to talk or play other games around the house. Lance stays. They have new people after all, and Never Have I Ever is always more fun with new people. And maybe he's a little curious about Keith. He learns some interesting things. He learns that one of their freshman beaters has broken her collarbone and now can makes a weird squeaking sound. He learns that one of their chasers has never left the state. He learns that their new keeper was born in Canada. He learns that Pitch can't spread their toes, and he learns that Coran is surprisingly flexible. He learns that Cheryl and Laura have masturbated while their soul connection was open, which they both drink to sheepishly, cheeks darkening as they refuse to make eye contact with anyone. He learns that Coran is not a virgin. He learns that Pidge has never touched themselves. He learns that Keith has never. While they play, lands the story though. Him leaning back on his free hand. He's surprised when he finds Keith's hand there. When their fingers brush, can't realize it was there at all, let alone that they were that close. But it doesn't pull away, and neither does Keith. And if they lean in a little closer, shoulders bumping to hide the fact that their fingers overlap a little. Well, no one has to know. Lance just enjoys playing the game, learning about his friends, new and old, in a home that's filled with voices and laughter with his team. So, we're trying to explain myself about how this little drunk thingy thing, and it's called the Circle of Death. No, basically plays games for the Quidditch team. And, it's really weird when you have this concept of what there is. They have some fun games like cards or just bring charades or never have I ever, and not when you're drunk, okay? I'm 19, I'm not gonna be drinking for this, okay?
Yeah.
It's none of that. The if you're over 21 or older, yeah, you probably drink. You're probably getting older. If not, whatever. Don't mind. He's well past buzz and chilling happily in the land of deeply tipsy. He doesn't know what Coran puts in these drinks, but they're good. Like top notch at a bar, paying out your ass good. Can barely taste the alcohol in them. Just enough so you know it's there, but not enough to make it gross. Sweet, pleasant, delicious. He's had a few by now. How many? Probably two, three, 3.5. Who knows? Point is, he's feeling good. His limbs are all tingly in that way they get. Skin feeling alive and numb at the same time, but not entirely detached. His face feels warm but distant. The room takes a second to catch up to him, and his focus is all over the place. He thinks he might be a little too loud, but it's not something he thinks he can help. He sits at the dining room table next to Pitch, their laptop open in front of them and a Vine compilation playing on YouTube. Pitch is leaning back in their chair, sitting cross-legged with her knees propped up on the table. Lance stretches his legs out, elbow on the table, and leaning heavily into it. There are others around them. He's lost track of who. The party's gotten into full swing, and everyone just kind of roams from room to room and from group to group. He's in the middle of quoting vines with Pitch when someone kicks his foot. He turns his head, focus settling on the feet next to his. Cat socks. Cute. His eyes slide up, loose black track pants. Nice hips. Up higher, a slim chest, broad shoulders. Nice arms. Keith's face. Hey, Keith, he draws, head long to the side as his lips curve into a lopsided smile. He's pouting, looking for the world like a disgruntled cat, all fluffy and everything. Where does he get off looking that cute? Not fair. Not fair at all. You're my seat, he says, poking Lance's foot with his own, a little more intensely. Now that he thinks about it, he does vaguely remember slipping into a seat when Keith stood up. He hums, thoughtfully shrugging. You leave, you lose, dude. I don't make the rules. I was sitting there, he says, crossing his arms over his chest. His cheeks are pink, and so his nose. His eyes have this little distant, glassy look to them that lets Lance know that he's feeling the effects of the alcohol, too. His glare isn't nearly as intense when he's drunk, and Lance giggles, which only makes his pout more prominent. Lance sits up straight, patting his thighs twice before holding his arms out. He just stares at him, eyes flickering to his left to his face. He bites at his bottom lip, just a little tiny bit being sucked between his teeth. Lance pats his thighs again. You want your seat? Here it is. He's grinning now, voice teasing. He's baiting Keith. He knows he is. And to be honest, he doesn't think he'll actually bite. But then Keith's nose crinkling, brows furrowing, and he huffs a mustard. Fine. Before turning and sitting on Lance's lap. And wow. Okay, he wasn't expecting that to work, but now he has a lap full of Keith, and he's not really sure what to do about it. Keith turns to Pidge's computer, and Lance is distantly aware of the fact that they're talking, but the words are lost on him as his brain continues to short circuit. He's not sure how long he sits there, arms hovering awkwardly beside him. It could have been minutes, and it could have been seconds. Time is strange and fuzzy and blurred, but eventually he does manage to restart his brain, or maybe his brain just shuts down altogether and he runs on instinct alone. Either way, his arms wrapped around Keith's middle, shifting so he can see Pidge's computer, and leaning forward to hook on his chin over Keith's shoulder. Keith stops, and Lance can feel how he holds his breath. He starts to worry that maybe he's gone too far, but before he can pull away, Keith relaxes, lets his hair out in a huff, and relaxes back against him. Lance smiles, hiding it in Keith's shoulder. He's warm and solid, and despite running around all day, he smells good. He smells like Keith. Or maybe he just smells bad and Lance just likes it. He's not sure. All he knows is that this is comfortable. He relaxes into it, revels in it, tries to memorize it. Keith and Pidge are still talking. He can feel Keith's voice where he's pressed into his back. Ken feels laugh where his arms wrapped around his stomach. There are other voices, but he doesn't pay attention to any of them. They drift away into a background hum, surrounding him in a comforting cocoon of noise. It's not long before his legs start to go numb, and he knows it, not because of the alcohol, but he doesn't say anything. He doesn't want Keith to move. He's comfortable like this. He's not his soulmate, but it's nice nonetheless. And deep down, beneath the muted fuzziness of his tipsy state, in that part of him that's reserved for deal when sober, that's a thought that terrifies him. Sitting down, just relax, while Pidge isn't at the computer, and wow, Lance had this. Lance, no, Keith sat on Lance's lap, and I mean that kind of a weird relationship right there between Lance and Keith, but you know, it has to be part of the story, because there might not be his soulmate there, but it could be somewhere, or it could be right in front of you. So that's what soulmate is. You never know who's your soulmate's going to be. Their own terms. He's not feeling sick exactly, not physically anyway. His heart just feels heavy. He really just wants to let it all go and just relax, have fun with his friends, but dwelling on things seems to be what his mind loves focusing on at the moment. As such, he spent the last 5 minutes in the bathroom, maybe 10 minutes? Who's counting? Just splashing cold water on his face and letting himself breathe for a moment. He walks past the kitchen on his way back to the living room, only to stumble back to the doorway. Hey, Karan, he says, leaning against the wall. Karan's the only one in the kitchen at the moment, and while the counters are a mess, his station has some sort of organized chaos to it. He glances up when Lance speaks, a smile brightening his face. Hello, Lance, he greets, turning back to his word. His hands hadn't even stopped moving. Lance is memorized by it. Need a drink? Nah, he says, pushing off the doorway and stepping into the kitchen. I have a drink, I think. He waves a hand around vaguely, gesturing to the general direction of the living room. Somewhere, probably, he finds a dry spot at the counter, pushes bottles out of the way, and pushes himself up into it, feet swinging as he watches Cran. What you doing? I'm just making a few drinks, he says cheerfully, setting a filled glass of something pink up on the bar in front of the sink that opens up to a window archway that faces the living room. He taps his hands down on a little bell sitting there, chiming out that the order was red. When and where they even get there? He slips back into the spot he occupied before, hands already reaching for more bottles, glasses, shakers, and instruments that Lance hasn't ever seen before, let alone knows what they're for. Were you ever a bartender? Cran laughs at that, eyes swinging as he puts the lid on the shaker and shakes it heartily. Not officially, just somewhat of a home study, he says with a wink, pouring out the drink and serving it up with a ring of bell. Lance watches him work. Heels lightly, tapping against the cabinets beneath him, hands fiddling with each other, picking at nails and cracking his knuckles. Something on your mind? Karan asks, voice softer. It's light-hearted and casual, but there are notes of concern that don't go unnoticed. He's not in the mindset of keep things in. Alcohol has always loosened his tongue and fills out his filter, and Karan has always been someone he feels he can confide in. So when he opens his mouth, he finds himself saying exactly what's been on his mind. You haven't met your soulmate yet, right? Cranstills eye him curiously, and Lance bites his lip, worrying that perhaps he had overstepped a boundary. But then, Cran is smiling, mustache swaying as he shakes his head. Nope, and your Lance pushes, waving the hand around the air, like 20, 28. Right. Lance picks at a hangnail, biting the inside of his cheek as he pulls at the skin, and it cuts a little too deep. Right. And does that ever, I don't know, bother you? Or something? You can see Karan looking at him out of the corner of his eye, but he keeps his head down, gaze on his hands, blood dwelling up the edge of his nail bed. Damn. Karan has been holding a glass, but he slowly sets it down, pushing it aside. Is it about Hunk? He asks softly, unkindly. There's something understanding in his voice, something that isn't judgmental or guilty. No, not really. Just thinking about soulmates and stuff. He trails off, slipping his finger into his mouth to lick the bit of blood away before wiping it on his pants. It stings, but the small, sharp pain keeps him grounded, gives him something besides this conversation to focus on. Something physical and Grant humps thoughtfully, crossing his arms over his chest and leaning back against the counter so they're side by side. He gazes idly across the skin, and Lance feels lighter already knowing it's not on him. Truth be told, it doesn't bother me at all, he says after a moment. It's our Lance, the matter-of-factness of it, the simplicity of it. At all? Lance echoes, like the words don't quite fit right on his tongue before he can't quite comprehend them. Nope, he says, bits of his usual cheer returning. He gives a small, offhanded shrug. I know most soulmates have met by now, but that doesn't mean I'm broken. It merely means I have to be a little more patient for the perfect person. Does it ever get, I don't know, lonely? He risks a glance at Cran, and finds that his smile is small and understanding. He tries again. Sometimes, but I have my now hobbies and my education and a coffee shop and my friends. Loneliness is only created when we think we should have something that isn't there. He starts picking at another hangnail and shoves his hands under his thighs to save himself from causing more damage. He swings in his legs a little more. During Never Have I Ever, you said you weren't Karan glances sideways at him, quirking an eyebrow. He's actually going to make him say it, isn't he? Jesus Christ. He feels like choking on the word. This is awkward. like talking to his dad or some virgin. Karan's eyes widen as he blinks in surprise. Mouth form and small. Oh. He blinks once, twice, and then throws back his head and laughs. Lance feels his face heating up. Great. Oh no! No, my boy. I most certainly am not. But it wasn't with your soulmate? Karan's question softens, and he leaves a heavy sigh. I realized long ago that there was a high possibility I wouldn't meet my soulmate for some time. And if not of a mindset to let myself miss out on experiences while I wait for them. Nor do I expect my soulmate to wait for me. Life is full of experiences, and it seems a shame to waste time waiting for something that isn't certain. But soulmates are certain, he protests, brows benching and lips pursing. He distantly realizes he might sound like a child, but it can't be helped. It's what he's been raised to believe, and to think that his soulmate isn't certain is just heartbreaking. The only thing we know to be guaranteed is that we will meet our perfect match. For how long or what happens after that is completely unknown. Karan says, all logic and matter of fact in a way he tends to be, but not unkind in his delivery. I look forward to the day we met, sure enough, but I won't sit idly by twiddling my thumbs while I wait. Have you ever thought of organizing a meeting? Of course, he says, turning back around and grabbing for one of the shakers, rinsing it out in the sink before grabbing for several bottles. Most people have, but we decided to let it happen naturally and without our forward influence. The old-fashioned way, if you will, keeps the mystery alive. Do you love them? He blurts out, regretting the question as soon as it leaves his hips, but unable to take it back. Thankfully, Karan doesn't seem fazed or offended. Of course I do, he says, firm and solid in his conviction, guarding Lance with his tongue. They understand me like no one else does, and they occupy a very special place in my heart. He pauses in his work, lifting his head and gazing thoughtfully at the wall, eyes distant, crinkling at the edges of his mouth. I imagine when we do meet, we both have many stories to tell, and I won't have it any other way. He grins then, spell broken as he turns toward Lance. It's like they say, isn't it? You only live once. Lance grin slow and genuine. Karan, he says, struggling to deaden his voice like he does, but laughter threatening to bubble up despite his efforts. Did you just encourage me to YOLO? There's a gleam of mischief in his eyes. Only if it turns out well. If things go sour, then I most certainly did not. Lance laughs, and Karan chuckles, lining up several empty shot glasses on the counter. Does that help calm whatever storm you have brewing in there? He asks, once the laughter subsides. Yeah, yeah, I think it does, he says, already feeling lighter. Thanks, Gran. Anytime, lad, he says, picking up the shaker and pouring it across the glass. Lance's jaw drops as a rainbow emerges across the line. Now then, Cran says, setting the shaker aside. How about some shots? Oh, hell yeah, Lance says, grinning as he hops off the counter. He moves to the sink and leans over the open bar area to peer out into the living room. Hey, Hunk, get in here and take some gay-ass shots with me. Okay, so you see Lance and Karan, they're talking to each other about soulmates, and is that what is that what he's talking about? He's is really a virgin? I don't wanna put this a explanation because doesn't get laid for that time. Really, most importantly, to soulmates, because getting ourselves a perfect match, because you wouldn't know where it goes, and just find another way to just pulling all the depths of it and pulling themselves apart, and finding a soulmate like Lance has to find a soulmate, but he's somewhere right there at that party, and he's never doesn't know that. He doesn't know that too either, because their soulmate could be right in front of you. Seen your soulmate right there, right in front of you all along, and you missed it. You missed that opportunity to talk to that person. Okay, let's just Yeah, let's keep going. He finds Keith outside. He hadn't even been aware of the fact that he's been looking for Keith until he found himself wandering through the Holt household, searching for a familiar mop of dark hair, slipping into conversations that ran up until the question, "Have you seen Keith?" drops from his lips. No one had. Not recently, anyway. Not until he stumbled across Shira and Laura sitting on the front porch, and Shira directed him to the backyard. And that's how he finds himself, stepping out in the cool autumn night, sliding the back door shut as quietly as he can. Keith is in the center of the yard, arms lying loosely over his middle as he stares up at the night sky. The breeze is heaven against Lance's heated skin, and he finds it clearing his foggy mind, calming his nerves. Even if his heartbeat is still rapid and erratic, he steps into the yard and almost immediately falls to his hands and knees, idly enjoying the cool touch of the grass as he crawls over to where Keith is. He flops down next to him, stretching out on his stomach and crossing his arms in front of him, resting his cheek on them. Keith doesn't look at him, just keeps his eyes on the stairs. It leaves Lance free to enjoy the sight of his profile, the shape of his nose, the curve of his jaw, the dip of his neck, those dark eyes reflecting the night sky itself. He's beautiful. It's a fact that it drips through his mind unbidden, sinking to his chest where the airiness of acceptance. There's nothing debatable about it. He is beautiful, especially when he's like this, calm and relaxed, at ease with the world and without the familiar pinch to his brows. The only acknowledgement of Lance's presence is this little tilt to his lips, the barest of smiles that he might have missed altogether if he hadn't been watching so closely, and that too is beautiful. "What you doing out here by yourself, edgelord?" he mumbles, words slurred a little and muffled where his face is pressed into his arms. He kicks out a leg, nudging Keith's calf with his foot. Keith hums, nudging back. They both give up the struggle before it really starts, leaving their legs touching, feet overlapping. "Got too loud. Wanted a break," he says, voice soft, lips barely moving. They look soft, even from this angle. Lance hums his understanding, and Keith turns to look at him. He hadn't realized just how close they were until they're facing each other, faces just inches apart. This seems to be happening a lot lately. Keith doesn't flinch away, though, and neither does he. He just lays there, melting into the grass, the smell of dirt and the night fresh of it in his nose. Feels light-hearted and at ease, worried, buried, and locked up deep inside. Keith thrown away to find another day. Feels the alcohol like a pleasant, warm hum in his veins, weighing him down while simultaneously lifting him up. Small curving at his lips as Keith's eyes look over his face. "What are you doing out there?" he asks, voice lazily and slurred with as much exhaustion as alcohol. Lance shrugs, shoulders brushing his ears. "Can't find you." Ah, there's that familiar pinch in his thick brows. Lance wants to reach out to put his thumb to them, smooth them out, but he doesn't. Keeps his hands beneath him, fingers curling into the grass. "Why?" Lance shrugs again. Because really, he doesn't have an answer. Doesn't want to think about it. Just know he noticed Keith was missing and wanted to find him. And now that he's here, he doesn't want to leave. Keith lets it go, takes his answer at face value and turns his eyes back to the stars. Normally, Lance would too. He likes the stars, loves them, is mildly obsessed with them, knows a ton of constellation, spent years and years going out at night and stargazing with his family, feels at peace when he stares at them, feels everything clicks into perspective, like all his problems aren't actually that big of a deal. When he looks at the stars, he feels comforted knowing there's someone out there, his perfect match, his soulmate, who can see them too. But right now, he doesn't feel compelled to look at the stars, doesn't feel the urge to roll over and see what constellations are gracing the sky this evening. Feels completely content to just keep staring at Keith. He wonders if Keith has freckles, and if he does, what kind of constellations they make. "You'll never kiss anyone." Doesn't know why he says it. Maybe it's because he's been thinking about it since they played Never Have I Ever. Maybe it's because he keeps thinking about what Corinne had said. Maybe it's because his eyes keep drifting back to Keith's lips and he idly wonders what they feel like. Doesn't know why he says it, but it's said. Drips out of his mouth and into the open air between them. Dissipates into the night. A statement. A fact, light and indifferent, opening the door for conversation that Keith can step through if he chooses, but it also offhanded enough to close the door too. Keith hums, low and thoughtful. Nope, me neither, he says, offering up the information even though he knows that Keith probably knows. He played Never Have Ever too, after all. There are probably a lot of random things Keith knows about him now. Are you waiting for your soulmate? There's a strange twist to those soft-looking lips that Lance doesn't know how to interpret. Knows quickly. Not exactly. He turns his head then, and Lance's breath catches at the intensity of his gaze. No longer distant and dreamy, now with an edgy of sharp clarity. The pinch in his brows is back, along with a slight purse to his lips. When he speaks, however, his voice is soft and hesitant, drifting like a breath through the space between them. What about you? He wants to say yes, because truthfully, he always has been. But when he opens his mouth, that's not what comes out. I don't know. It's whispered, surprised more than confused or uncertain. Keith turns to his side, fully facing Lance, giving him his full attention. One hand rests on the grass between them, and Lance idly watches as he picks at it. What you mean? He asks, all breathless and hesitant, and Lance doesn't know why that sets off his erratic heartbeat. He shrugs. I used to think I was, but I don't know anymore. It's a lot easier to admit than he thought it would be. And maybe it's the alcohol in his system making it easy. And maybe it's how Keith looks in the moonlight, highlighted by shadows. Who's to say for sure? When he meets Keith's face again, the expression is relaxed and open, lips loosely parted and isolated. He turns onto his side without really thinking about it, facing Keith, hand reaching out to idly play with the fingers of his hand. What do you know then? Keith asked, and so soft at that first, Lance isn't sure he said it at all, but when the words sink in, bounce around his mind until they gather a meaning. And really, what does he know? He knows he wants his soulmate. That much is a given. But he also knows he can't have that. Not right now. Not right here in this moment, lying in Pitch's backyard beneath the night sky. He can't have that right now, and he knows that. So, what does he want? He wants Keith's warmth, wants how sturdy he feels, wants his certainty and his stability, wants a smile and a little crinkle in his eyes. Doesn't want this moment to end. He lifts his gaze from their hands, settles on Keith's face, looks down to his lips. I know I want to kiss you, he says, and is surprised by how much he means it, surprised by how the intensity of it grows as soon as he says it aloud. Surprised by how strong the urge is now that he's acknowledged it. He is leaning in before he really realizes it, eyes drifting shut as he closes the distance between them. Keith's lips are chapped but warm. Their noses bump together, and he smells like fruit and rum. Keith stiffens, breath catching oddly. Lance leans to him, pressing firm but unsure what to do now that he's here, now that he's frozen against him. He pulls back almost instantly, breaks the contact but stays close enough that he can feel Keith's shallow breaths against his skin. The heartbeat is in his ears, bruising the inside of his ribs. Then Keith leans forward, tilts his head, and slots their lips together again, and Lance melts into him. His fingers find their way to Keith's hair without remembering moving them. Their teeth clack, and he pulls away in surprise, only to have Keith chase after him, claiming his lips again. When they finally pull apart, he opens his eyes. Their gazes meet, and it feels like he's falling into the stars. Kind of get to the point that Lance and Keith were, you know, just put themselves into the closure. Not a closure. The closeness is what I called. They're really close to each other, and they started to feel like, I mean, they're soulmates, and but they don't know. Feel that lips start to put them together, just slowly kissing on the lips. That's kind of put that in motion, but it's just steadies down a little bit. It's just steadies down. The reaction comes out in the play, and here it is. The panic comes next day when, as he wakes up, groggy, head pounding, eyes heavy encrusted, curled up in a blanket among everyone else in the oddness they've created on the living room floor. In the sobering light of day, he stares at Keith lying next to him, curled in his own blanket cocoon, mouth hidden in a blanket, hair a mess across his pillow, face relaxing. He stares at the spot where their fingers are tangled between them. Keith's glove soft against his palm. He sees the yellow and gold sole marks curling instantly around his forearm, weaving down the fingers that are intertwined with Keith's, and tastes bile on his tongue. Biting his tongue, he manages to shove his way out of his nest and tiptoe around the bodies on the floor before rushing to the bathroom. Body breaking out in a cold sweat. He makes it in time, falling to his knees and emptying his stomach. It's quick and relatively painless, all things considered, but he groans when it's done, rinsing his mouth out before collapsing to the floor. He stares at the marks on his arms, stomach rolling, head pounding, heart sinking. He kissed Keith. He kissed Keith. He kissed Keith. And the worst part is that he had liked it. He learns pretty quickly that guilt and hangovers don't mix well. Thankfully, he can hide one behind the other. Does he see the full Keith? However, if he worried looks, he sends him is anything to go on. Lance can't help it though. Can't deal with this right now. Can't even begin to process it, let alone sort through the emotional tangle he's got brewing in his chest. Now when his body feels wrecked, both from the hangover and from the tournament yesterday. Now isn't the time. He doesn't know if there ever will be a time to address it, but it definitely isn't now. Actually, he'd be pretty happy if they never addressed this. Let it fade into forgotten memories. Kisses exchange beneath the stars, wrapped in the shadows of the night. Let it drift away and forget about it. He wants it to go away so he doesn't have to deal about it. But the thought of forgetting makes his chest hurt. It makes him nauseous all over again. Oh God, he's a wreck. He just wants to go home, curl up in his bed, and sleep forever. And he wants to do all of this without thinking about Keith or his soulmate, because he can't do either without guilt curling hard in his gut, making his blood run cold and his throat close up. So when they start to pile into cars and head back to Altea, he makes sure to climb into Hunk's car, claim the last spot, and ensuring that he'll go the entire 4.5 hours without being in an unclosed space with Keith. He keeps his head down so he doesn't have to see the hurt look on Keith's face as he passes by the car. You know, after all said and done, it's just, you know, been kind of emotional when he, when Lance kissed Keith, and that some sort of that drunk. Whenever you feel like drunk, you know, drinking alcohols and whatnot, and you end up falling in love with somebody that it could be your soulmate or could, and you know, I told you, like I said, soulmate is gonna be, soulmate might be right in front of you. Soulmate is right in front of you. Anybody right there in this college right here, whatever your soulmate is, it could be anywhere. It could be right in front of you, or it could be a couple miles away from the school. Or getting it, but this is a very different story. So, I mean, we're talking about soulmates, okay? When you feel like you have this one, you sleep with somebody that it could potentially be your soulmate, because the universe wants you to have that soulmate. I love that. At this point, he is used to avoiding Lance. What he isn't used to, though, is Lance avoiding him, and he's quickly coming to the conclusion that he doesn't like it. It's been nearly a week since the Quidditch tournament, since the party, since their kiss, since the awkward morning after. Keith had woken up with mild panic twisting his stomach, but an oddly pleasant feeling fluttering his chest that had faded once he found his hand cold and Lance missing. It had completely tanked Once he realized Lance could barely look him in the eye without grimacing. So, yeah, so much for that lesson is. Nearly a week, and Lance is still avoiding him, and he's not subtle about it. He tries. He knows he's trying, but his excuses are weak. Laughter disjointed, shoulders to lunge up to his ears as he walks away from him. Ladder knows too. Hunk watches Lance with pity in his eyes, lips pressed into an understanding frown. Pit just narrows their eyes, curiosity pique as gears turn their mind. Alera watches him with worried frowns and smiles that are a hair too bright. Corinne speaks to him with soft voices and hard jokes. Everyone can tell Lance is feeling off, and everyone can tell that he's one Keith. But Keith doesn't know how much they know. Hopes they don't know. But one shared look with Hunk tells him that at least Lance's roommates knows. Keith looks away quickly, guilt and shame rolling in his gut. Even when Lance does talk to him, it's always stiff and rambling. There's a tenseness in his body that never really fades. Keith and realizes how used to the relaxed atmosphere that's grown between them until it's gone. And he wants back. They were finally friends. And it did up. Lance did up. They both did up. Honestly, he can't even remember kiss who first. One moment it wasn't happening, and the next it was. But he does know that they kept it going, so they both did. The difference is that Keith should have known better. He knows how Lance feels about his soulmate. He's heard it from Hitch. He's seen it. He's felt it. He knows how Lance feels, and he knows he's not ready to face that head on. But he went ahead and let himself kiss him anyway, because it was soft and beautiful, and he had far too many drinks that were making him feel all warm and open. Mistake, mistake, mistake. And now he's caught between wanting to hang out with his new friends to regain normalcy and wait for Lance to come around, and hiding away in his apartment to avoid the awkwardness altogether. Ugh, he never wanted this. He just wants things to be easy. Things are never easy. He knows what the easy way would be. The easiest thing to do, perhaps the best thing to do, will be just to tell Lance to come clean. Claim to be his soulmate and get it over with. Get it out in the open. That would be a reasonable thing to do. He thinks that he can't. Because it's not easy. Not like everyone thinks it is. He's not ready for that. Soulmates are a big commitment. Soulmates are a huge step. It's not like he has distance between them as an excuse to have some space. Lance is here at his university, friends with his friends, and Lance is a lot. He's a lot, especially when it comes to the whole soulmates thing. They just started getting close friends, and Keith doesn't want to ruin that. He's afraid. He's scared. He's scared that telling Lance will change everything. Lance will no doubt be mad that Keith didn't say anything sooner, but it's more than that. Their whole relationship will change. Lance will start to see him as his soulmate and stop seeing him as just Keith. The rocky friendship will get rockier as they try to figure out how soulmates fits into it too. Then Lance will no doubt expect them to be in a relationship, and Keith has no idea how to balance boyfriend on top of that. Not just boyfriend, but forever boyfriend. Soulmate. A lifelong commitment. A lifetime of possibilities to fuck up. He knows how Lance is the whole soulmate thing, and he knows Lance will want to skip straight to their happily ever after. But Keith has seen firsthand what happens when the leap is made too fast. What happens after the storybook ends? What happens in the movie's credits roll? Violent delights meet violent ends. And he also knows what happens when things go slow. He knows what happens, what can happen, when relationships are left to go natural. He's seen it from the outside, and it looks incredibly more stable and lasting than marks that appear on your skin. So, when it comes down to it, he doesn't know what to do. He knows he doesn't want to. He can't tell Lance. He's not ready. That kind of launch would warp whatever rocky relationship they already have. It would put pressure on both of them, and he doesn't think they're strong enough not to buckle under that weight. He's not a huge fan of the concept of soulmates, but he also doesn't want to ruin the chance they have. And he knows that in this moment, 10 lands would ruin things, make their future incredibly unstable and uncertain. He doesn't want that for himself. He doesn't want to go through what his parents did. But more than that, he doesn't want to ruin it for Lance. Lance who sees his soulmate as perfect. Lance who idolizes the mere concept. Lance who's so stupidly, ignorantly innocent, but in a way that's as endearing as it is obnoxious. He doesn't deserve that, so Keith won't ruin it for him. He doesn't know what to do, but he knows he needs to do something. Some sitting around it all as slowly driving him insane. Too many thoughts, too many questions, too many things that he didn't fucking sign up for but has to deal with anyway. He doesn't paint on himself because he feels like that would somehow be counterproductive, but his sketchbooks and canvases aren't doing shit for them. His friends all tell him that Lance will come around, even though they don't know why he's avoiding Keith in the first place. They all tell him to just wait it out, that Lance gets like this sometimes. But they all give him kind smiles and pats on the shoulder, telling him everything will be okay. But Keith is restless. He's restless and feels his irritation growing with each passing day. He hates this. Hates the shame and guilt that threatens to choke him every time he sees the droop in Lance's shoulders, the forced smile, the conflicted shadows in his eyes. Hates that Lance has stopped writing picket lines on his palms every morning. It's been years since he's been completely soulmark free. He doesn't realize just how strange it is to see his hands completely blank and bare until he's faced with it, and hates it more than he thought he would. He doesn't know what to do, but he knows he has to do something. Yeah, Keith, you better do something about this though. Soulmate. Yeah, this is the moral of the story. Is if you feel like you're uncomfortable of telling that you're the soulmate of this, you just have to come clean. You have to admit this. You gotta accept that this person is your soulmate. Yeah, I usually talk about that before because I mean this story, it does make sense. It really makes sense as I read along. But I mean, come on, it's a wonderful story. It's a good story to read. Okay, so just do that right now. Admit it that you love the story. Just admit it. He finds Lance exactly where Hunk told him he'd be. Their local humane society is located off a side road, nestled up on far away from the main highways in the town itself. It gives them plenty of room, but Keith had gotten lost several times trying to find it, missing turns and having to backtrack. It is exactly easy using Google Maps while riding his bike. He's never really been to a place like this before, but the woman at the front desk was helpful and friendly as she pointed him in the right direction. And that's how he finds himself standing outside the large glass wall that looks into the cat room, hands in his pockets, a small smile on his face as he watches Lance. He's sitting up against one of the walls, and the cats are flocking to him. There are a few other people in the room, scattered about, with their own little groups of cats curiously circling him. His eyes, however, are solely on Lance. There are several cats curled up and stepping over his lap, a few pawing at his shoes, one rubbing up along his side. His smile is soft and genuine, and is the most relaxed and at peace Keith has seen him in a week. He dangles a toy in the air and laughs as one of the cats dives for his hand. Keith's heart squeezes. He doesn't know how long he's standing there before Lance notices him, but he has a feeling it's bordering on creepy. When Lance does notice him, he has to do a double take. He freezes, eyes widening and mouth dropping open. It looks like he's on the verge of panic before one of the cats leaps at his hand again, wrapping up his arm and playfully gnawing on his knuckles. He yelps in surprise, turns his attention to disentangling the cat before looking back at Keith. Shearer this time. Keith does his best to smile, lifting a hand from his pocket to wave awkwardly. They stay like that for a moment, awkward and stiff. Lance not sure where to put his attention, and Keith shifting uncomfortably on the other side of the glass. Finally, Keith bites a bullet, huffs aside, and heads toward the door, washes his hands and slips into the cat room, making a beeline for where Lance is. Some of the cats scatter as he approaches, but some of them stay, eyeing him curiously and warily. He ignores them for the most part and slides down the wall to sit next to Lance, close enough to keep their conversation private, but far enough away that they're not touching. He crosses his legs, hands in his lap, fiddling with the hem of his gloves, eyes downcast, even though he can feel Lance's gaze on him. He clears his throat. Hey, hey, Lance echoes, sound much like a weird cat itself. How did you, uh, find me? Keith tries. Hum told me where you were. Ah, he says, like he expected as much, but is displeased nonetheless. I, uh, come here to think sometimes. Keith quirks a little smirk, risking a sideways glance at him as he gestures to the pile surrounding him. They like you. Lance smiles, small and soft, as he gazes down at them, reaching out to pet as many as he can reach. Yeah, I just wish I could take them all back with me. I don't think you're allowed to have cats in the dorms. Lance huffed a small, dry laugh. We're not, but Hunk and I have already devised the perfect system for keeping it a secret. Pidge is in on it too. Keith feels a smile. Of course you have, he says, flatly, importantly hiding his amusement. The elastic sounds. Keith is feeling increasingly awkward, fiddling with his fingers, cracking his knuckles. Now that he's here and Lance is here, he's not sure what to do. He wasn't sure what to do to begin with. Just assumed he'd wing it. Now winging it seems like a bad plan. An orange tabby with the white muzzle struts over to him, past the line of curious life. An orange tabby with a white muzzle struts over to him, past the line of curious feline eyes that have just been watching him. She takes a moment to sniff his knee before stepping right into his lap, curling up and plopping herself down like she owns it, stretches out like it's her throne. He stares down at her, hands hovering uncertain in the air, and hears Lance snickering beside him. I think she likes you, dude. I don't know what I did, he says, finally reaching down to scratch beneath her chin, her ears, her back. She purrs, eyes drooping as she nuzzles into the touch. Cats have a good judgment in people, Lance says, voice off, but when Key glances at him, he keeps his eyes down. After the orange tabby declaration, a few of the other cats approach Key. Some of them skitter away from the touch, but others stay. It's a lot more peaceful than he expected it to be. Despite the nausea gnawing at his nerves, he feels light, relaxed. He's always been fond of cats, and doesn't know why he never thought to come here before. He can't understand why Lance likes him. Why are you here? He knew the question was coming. Has been waiting for it, but that doesn't stop the spike in his heartbreak when it's finally asked. Doesn't stop his palms from sweating and his lips from pursing. He manages to retract and mumbles. I can't find you. I got that much, Lance says, and Keith is certain he's rolling his eyes. I meant, why? Another shrug, eyes on the tabby in his lap. You've been avoiding me, so obviously I had to come find you. I hadn't been, Lance. Keith says sharply, cutting him off, and lifts his eyes, meeting Lance's. He looks surprised, but snaps his mouth shut anyway, pursing his lips as his expression sours into a pout. Keith sighs, running his fingers through his hair as he looks away. Look, I know you're avoiding me, and I know it's because of what happened last weekend. Lance face steps out. It's all the confirmation Keith needs. Can we just talk? Lance sighs. His whole body goes into it, slumping forward, expression twisting to something wry and unamused. He sounds defeated when he speaks. Maybe he'd been expecting this too. Maybe they had both known it would only be a matter of time before they had this conversation, and that makes Keith feel a little braver. Yeah, okay, not here. Glances around, frowning a little as his gaze settles on the people across the room. Keith nods, gently pushing the cat out of his lap so it can stand. She protests, loudly and pathetically. He silently promises to come visit her again. He turns to Lance, holding his hand out to help pull him up. I drove my bike here, so it can take them somewhere private, so they can get this over with quickly, so they don't have to talk while they travel. Lance eyes him for a moment, then sighs, gently pushing the cat off of him and taking Keith's hand. He's had a lot of passengers on his bike throughout the years. His grandparents, Shiro, Pitch, a couple of classmates. Even met once when Shiro had goaded him into trying it. It's never felt as intimate to have a passenger as it does with Lance, and Keith knows it has nothing to do with them being soulmates, and everything to do with the fact that he's just so goddamn aware of him 24/7. He's aware of where Lance leans into his back, aware of the firmness in his chest, aware of how solid he feels, aware of his warmth bleeding through his jacket, aware of his thighs pressed to Keith's, aware of the arms locked around his waist, aware of the fact that the faster he goes, the tighter Lance holds on. When they left human society, Keith hadn't really thought about where it was going. He had only known that they needed somewhere private. His apartment would cut it, and neither would Lance's dorm. Too intimate, too much of an enclosed space. He had turned his bike down the road and just drove. It takes him about 10 minutes to realize where he's going, and when it does, he speeds up a little more. The human society is already out of town, so it doesn't take long to get to the back roads, to find the parkway, to ride up the hills, to let the buildings fade away and be replaced by trees. He slows, obeying the speed limit for once, gives him time to think, time to figure out what the hell he's going to say. Unfortunately, when he pulls up onto the overlook, stops his bike right at the curb and uses his heel to put the kickstand down. He still has no idea what he's going to say. Lance is already leaning away from him, pulling off his helmet. Keith does the same, picks a leg up over his bike and sets both feet on the ground, hangs his helmet on the handlebars, and half sits, half leans against the bike. Lance's knee presses against his thigh, and it's as much as comfort as it is an uncomfortable reminder. He crosses his arms over his chest, eyes staring straight ahead rather than at the boy next to him. The overlook drops steeply, sweeping down and out to rolling mountain scenery. The trees are starting to change color, a world in colors of autumn. The sun hangs low. The sun hangs low in the sky, not quite sunset, but casting the sky into sepia shades nonetheless. This is my favorite overlook, he says softly, and offering to the sounds, mouth feeling dry and floating feeling thick. He clears his throat, shifting his weight. It's pretty, Lance moves, and while Keith is sure he means it, he sounds distracted. He wasn't moved, still standing his bike next to him. Helmet crater on his lap, fingertips tapping at the hard surface. He just hums, mind already whirling. He doesn't know what to say, but whatever it's going to be, it should probably be now. He should probably start with an apology. This is how these things go, right? Tell Lance he's sorry that he didn't expect anything from him, that the friendship don't have to change. He opens his mouth, words on the tip of his tongue. I'm sorry. His mouth snaps shut, brows furrowing as he turns to look at Lance. His head is bowed, eyes on the helmet in his lap. He isn't sure what's happening, mind going blank, so he responds with a very intelligible, "What?" Keith heaves a heavy sigh, one that makes his whole frame rise and fall. He looks up, lets purse into a sad little frown, and eyes way too expressive. He looks away quickly, out over the edge of the overlook. I'm sorry, he repeats with some. I'm sorry I kissed you. I know you said you weren't waiting for your soulmate, but you still have one, and I disrespected that. I shouldn't have. This isn't what... Not without at least asking. I'm sorry too. Lance's from cuts abruptly. All the frustration that had been building seeps out of him instantly, and he visibly deflates. When Keith glances at him, he looks utterly bewildered. When Keith apologizing is the last thing he expected. His mouth opens and closes a couple times, brows furrowing as he frowns. Why are you sorry? Keith can't help the wry smirk that tugs at the corner of his lips. I kiss you too. Nan's face goes through the variety of expressions in a short amount of time. Keith manages to catch a few of them: surprise, confusion, understanding, embarrassment, amusement, guilt. Oh, Riley says, light and airy, like the thought honestly had occurred to him. What an idiot! What an innocent idiot! This isn't his burden to bear. Not alone. He's not the only one that should feel guilty about this whole thing. Keith has his fair share too. His smile fades, and he turns to stare at his boots, roaming over the scuff marks on the old letter. Look, he has a sigh, running his finger through his hair. I know I shouldn't have kissed you. I know how you feel about your soulmate, and it wasn't my place to. I didn't mind. It comes out fast and rush, interrupting him before he can really get going. Keith cuts off, mouth snapping shut hard enough to hurt, and throat feeling tight as he turns slowly. Lance is staring at him, hands clasped over his mouth, eyes wide overtop them, gazing at Keith with just as much panic as surprise. That isn't what he expected to hear. He blinks, and he manages to find his voice. It sounds rough, hoarse, and a little too breathy in his disbelief. What? Lance lowers his hands, resting them on the helmet as he straightens, closing his eyes. He takes in a deep breath, holds it, and lets it out in a long, shuddering exhale, shoulders relaxing somewhat. When he opens his eyes again, there's a spark there, a determination, and strength he's been lacking for a week. It is familiar as exhilarating, and he hadn't realized just how much he missed it. It sent a shiver down his spine, warmth coiling in his gut, blood pulsing in his ears. I didn't mind, he repeats, voice stronger, barely wavering at the edges as he holds Keith's gaze. I kinda liked it. If you're not mad, then I definitely don't regret it. So he's running out of steam fast, slouching inch by inch, eyes flicking away from Keith's. So he decides to give him a lifeline. I didn't mind it either, he says, voice soft and genuine, raw in his honesty. Lance perks up a little at that, breathless as he says, really? Keith shrugs, gaze moving out to the overlook because it's safer than staring into those startling blue eyes, sparkling with awe and hope and something deeper. He feels heat crawling up his neck, creeping to his face. He hopes it's not visible, but he knows it probably is. So, this time when Lance speaks into silence, it's hesitant but strong, a sly edge to it that Keith is both knows and surprised by. It's similar to the voice he uses when he's about to suggest something, but there's an uncertain edge to it, making it softer, calmer, tentative. I've been thinking, he continues, fingers restlessly tapping on the helmet to a pattern that Keith doesn't recognize. Neither of us have met our soulmates yet, and who knows how long that will take. So if we're both okay with it, I don't see any reason why we can't just do stuff like that sometimes. He's trying definitely to sound casual and indifferent, confident and smooth. Keith knows he is, but Lance can't completely hide his uncertainty, his worry, his hesitancy, his fear of what Keith might say. Honestly, he shouldn't worry too much because Keith is currently having a hard time processing any of it. It takes longer than he'd like to admit for his brain to restart, properly take it all in, process it, and come up with an intelligible reply. Long enough that Lance had started squirming in his seat, shifting restlessly, finger tapping more insistent. No strings attached, he manages to say, pleased when his voice comes out a little calmer than he feels. Without the immediate rejection, Lance looks stronger, sits in a little taller, a smirk actually managing to make its way to the surface as he shrugs. Yeah, I mean, we both like it, right? And it seems a shame to lose out on experiences just because we haven't met our soulmates yet. He falters in, his soap subtle and so sweet that Keith might not have noticed if he hadn't been watching him carefully. A flicker in his eyes, a pinch to his brows, a drooping of his smirk, but then it's gone, and Lance is back. Cocky, confident, and far too unaware of things he does to Keith. Just friends enjoying each other's company until we find our soulmates, yeah? It doesn't have to be anything more. He tries again, and Keith starts to see minor cracks on his facade. But despite the cracks, despite the shadows, there's something more. A fire in his eyes, a longing in his voice. It's all directed at him. People do it all the time, right? It's not that weird. Keith regards him carefully. This isn't anything like what he's expected, but he's not opposed to it. And Lance seems to be honest in his proposal. It isn't a trick. It isn't him brushing this aside. He's he's rolling with it in a way that surprises him and sends a thrill of excitement through his entire body. And you be okay with that? He asked. One hour race. Careful. Careful because he knows Lance. Knows how it feels about his soulmate. Has known for years. But this Lance, looking at him right now, is a Lance that has no doubts about what he's saying. Some reservations, yes, but no doubts. Lance shrugged is half-hearted, half smirking into the soft smile isolated. There's a fondness there that has his breath catching in his throat. It's the same look he had given him a week ago, bathed in the light spilling out from his house into the yard. A look that had twisted Keith's heart and melted his insides. It's a look he's finding himself increasingly weak for. He quirks her brow smile, twitching at the edges. YOLO? Keith's face falls into a blank mask as he deepens. Did you just use YOLO on me? Lance's smile widens to a full grin, crinkling his eyes. I can keep saying it until you shut me. Keith reaches out, fingers wrapping around his neck, pulling him forward, leaning in until their lips meet. It's a rough and rush, and they both stiffen at the contact. A second ticks by, then two. Before panic has a chance to set in, Lance is relaxing into it, and Keith is only a second behind, hesitating for a better angle, sighing heavily through their noses. Keith's fingers thread through Lance's hair, and Lance reaches out to grip the collar of his jacket, pulling him closer. The kiss is soft and hesitant, cautious but eager. One leads to another, which leads to another, again and again. Part of him is worried he's making a mistake. Part of him whispers that this is a bad idea, but the part is pushed to the wayside, forgotten as he loses himself in the feeling of Lance's lips, warm against his own, of his face and neck, smooth and soft beneath his fingertips. All reservations, all worried and doubts, they were all tossed aside, shoved away to deal with later, because Lance had asked, looked at him with those blue eyes, dark with longing, but at his lip like he was scared of rejection, of overstepping boundaries. Looked at him, looked at Keith, not as his soulmate, but just as Keith. And really, how can he say no? Are you dead? Pitt says they haven't heard from you all day, and you said you'd be over from there tonight. Oh yeah, I forgot. Rain Jack? Sure, what's up? Where you been? Please tell me you're actually going to eat and you're not going to mope around in your apartment. You know the rules. You can mope, but you can't starve. I actually already ate. Oh? Yeah, I'm without Lance. Shiro, don't make this weird. I'm just surprised. Did you actually go and make up without me having to push you? I can be mature sometimes. That's still up for debate. Golf. So does this mean everything is okay between you two? Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. I'm glad. Me too. So, when are you going to tell him? I'm not pushing you. You know that. No. That's fine. One step at a time. Yeah. One step at a time. And soulmates has been into this situation right now, and it feel that emotional thing when it comes to soulmates and find love, just as that is like Hunk and Shane. They're now being together, and they are just soulmates, and they did it. Lance felt happy for Hunk, and then after all this drinking, all this some sort of stuff that he don't want to see, that you really see, because I read it. Now, Lance and Keith have some sort of connection with each other's soulmates, their own soulmates. But once they meet them in the middle, Keith just kissed right off the bat. No, not right off the bat. Just Keith had just kissed Lance on the first time that they started, and then they might have that same emotion into each other. I mean, it's feelings, okay? Just put this on the feelings on the table, because that's what it is. And when it's all started, the second time that they kiss, it's felt real. It is real, and it's just Keith. But that's yeah, it is really, really close to put them in the collision, and just the tip of their thing, whatever I'm gonna do, whatever this hand gesture is, I mean, the collision started, and that's where Keith Lance just kissed. When all is said and done about the Quidditch practice, and after all that, it all comes down to Lance and Keith now, and kind of trying to be so ironic that they're together. But would anybody show them that they are together? Find out. Okay, guys, that is the end of this situation right here. I'm gonna leave it right there. I'm gonna see you in the next chapter, so we'll see what happens in the next chapter. Yeah, right. Bye, everybody.